Hokage Unlimited enhancement every 60 days. Chapter 181-200. 181. Strange room. Room is very big, but there is no separation such as bedroom and living room, but full of various machinery. It looks like a factory. Factory. Longcheng frowned, and he couldn't help but feel amused. In the depths of the Holy Land Mary Joa, how could there be a factory building and then strolling around? Longcheng is not engaged in machinery, The purpose of the machine is completely unclear. Go inside and take a look. This is just the outermost room. According to the scale of the whole building, there are at least 20 or 30 rooms of this size. Longcheng's figure flickered, and he shaved again. Instead of going through the door, he went straight through the wall and entered the next room. This time the room is much smaller. The table is full of test tubes and beakers. It looks like a laboratory. Although there are various labels on the utensils, the names are so strange that Longcheng has no idea what it is. Forget it. Scratched his head, swayed again, and went directly to the next room. This time, it was a huge library with hundreds of tall bookshelves, full of books. Longcheng glanced at it, involving various disciplines, and randomly selected 2 books. The content was extremely esoteric and difficult. What the hell is this place? Factories, laboratories, libraries, and Longcheng are more and more puzzled, and more curious about this place. Immediately afterwards, regardless of whether there is a door or not, whether the door is locked or not, with the ability to shave through multi-dimensional space, Longcheng will move from room to room, just like watching flowers at a glance. Some rooms are also similar to factories and laboratories, but the contents inside are obviously different. Visiting the whole building for the most part, although Longcheng still doesn't know where it is, it can be roughly seen that the owner here is researching some projects. As for the specific project, I don't know. What's also strange is that, with such a big building and so many rooms, Longcheng walked all the way down, but he didn't meet a single person. Is there only one? Of course, there can't be no one here. After all, Longcheng saw Zhan Taowen walk into this place with his own eyes. And from the various rooms, signs of human activity can also be seen. As for why I haven't met people, there is only one explanation. There are very few people here, and there is probably only one person who lives for a long time. Because it is too big and there are too many rooms, it is not so easy to meet. Well, here is. Just when Longcheng was thinking about it, he then entered the next room and couldn't help but be startled. Not the kind of factory, laboratory, and the area is not that large, with neat bookshelves, messy desks, and a comfortable chair, like an ordinary person's study. Longcheng couldn't help laughing. After walking through so many rooms, he finally saw a normal place. What is this? Subconsciously walking to the desk, I saw a picture in the middle of a pile of debris, a place that was clearly cleaned up roughly. There is no text, only various symbols, and graphics like modeling. Longcheng frowned, still completely incomprehensible. Forget it. Pouting, Longcheng was ready to leave. After wandering around so many rooms and seeing so many things, except. At a loss, I have nothing, so I simply stop wasting time. Hiss. And at this moment, a sparse sound sounded, as if something was rubbing on the ground. Whoosh. The next moment, the sound of breaking the air suddenly sounded, and a white light suddenly shot out from the corner and went straight to Longcheng's throat. Longcheng frowned, shaving instantly activated, and moved directly to 7 or 8 meters, under the wall outside. This is a snake. At the same time, the empty white shadow fell to the ground, and Longcheng saw clearly at this time that it was a white giant python. It was said to be a giant python, because its body was 30 or 40 meters long, and the thickness of a bucket. The head is triangular in shape with slightly raised sides, a bit like horns. The scales are rhombus-shaped, small and compact, and look extremely hard. This white python is very handsome, but what makes Longcheng puzzled is that this study is not very big. How could he have not seen such a big python just now? Just when Longcheng was wondering, the white python flew up again, straight come to him. Mouth is wide open, and in addition to the bright red core, there are 2 pairs of sharp fangs. 100,000 Wajang fist cannons. This time, Longcheng did not dodge, but directly greeted him with a punch. Boom! They are still a few meters away, and the air cannon shot by the fist hit the head of the white python, and then with a loud noise, it directly flew back. Hiss! But what made Longcheng's eyes widen instantly was that although it was an air cannon, it was after all 100,000 tile fists. The white python who took this blow, let alone killed, didn't seem to be injured at all. Moreover, the white python who was hit this time only had its upper body thrown back, and the whole body was like a stiff bow, supporting the ground through its tail, which abruptly offset the impact of Longcheng's fist strength. What a powerful beast! When Longcheng regained his senses, he couldn't help smacking his tongue. You must know that with the punch he just punched, even the giant sea king was dead. When Longcheng was thinking about it, Bai Python also stared at him, and his icy pupils seemed to have a strong interest. Hiss! But the next moment, the white python spit out its core, and then pounced on it again. Whoosh! Longcheng frowned slightly, his figure swayed, and he moved away first. Then it reappeared on the side of the white python again, and as soon as he lifted his foot, he kicked out a few chi blades. Swish! 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 The strengthened land's feet have absolute slashing attributes, hitting the white python's body directly and cutting it into several pieces. Then, with all his strength, he cut through the wall and flew out. Huh! Sneer at the corner of Longcheng's mouth. Even if his body structure was special and could withstand a blunt impact, he still couldn't resist a slash. This is. But then, the smile on Longcheng's face disappeared, and his eyes widened in surprise. The white python was indeed cut into several pieces, but it did not die. Then the piece of body, after twisting, touched again. And at the moment when the wound touched, it began to heal quickly. Longcheng was surprised that in the blink of an eye, it had completely healed. If it wasn't for the blood stained on the ground, it would not have been possible to see that this white python had ever been cut off. What the hell is it? Longcheng regained his senses, and when he looked at the white python again, he couldn't help frowning. It can withstand the impact of 100,000 tile Zhengchen, and it has super self-healing ability that is almost immortal. Not to mention other. Just talking about defense, this is too perverted. Hiss! Just as Longcheng was thinking about it, Bai Python kept looking at him with his head tilted, his eyes suddenly glowing with brilliance. Immediately afterwards, he twisted and crawled towards the Dragon City. Longcheng was vigilant for a while, but then found that the white python did not seem to be malicious. Phailu reminds you. 3 things to read. 182. Pet shall buy. Small things are pretty cute. The white python, which was fierce and vicious just now, is now like a docile puppy. Under Longcheng's caress, his face is full of enjoyment, and from time to time he spit out the core, making Longcheng's palm a little itchy. This strange building, I don't know how there is such a white python. But obviously, this guy is very spiritual. After being beaten, he was convinced by Longcheng's strength. Ta-ta-ta, just as Longcheng was thinking about it, there was a sudden sound of rapid footsteps outside. No, someone is here. Longcheng's complexion changed. He fought with the white python just now. The movement was too loud, and it seemed that the owner and Zan Taomaru had been alerted. Little guy, it's time for me to go. With Longcheng's strength, especially Yubu, shaved, iron wall cross, a variety of life-saving skills, in general, it can't help him at all. But this is the Holy Land Mary Joa after all, who knows if there is any. The legendary 2-2 general situation. The most important thing is that Longcheng still has business to do and doesn't want to get into trouble here, so he turned around and left. Whoosh! But at this moment, with a soft sound, the white python turned into a white light and jumped directly into Longcheng's sleeve. This is. At this time, looking at it again, the giant python that was originally tens of meters long and the thickness of a bucket has now become only a few tens of centimeters in length and the thickness of a finger. Longcheng blinked. This little thing is not only super resistant to beatings, but it has also changed. The ability to change from big to small. I see. This is also understandable. No wonder when I first entered this room, I didn't see it. It must have become smaller and hidden somewhere. It is really a sinister guy. What, do you want to come with me? Immediately after returning to his senses, looking at the little white python in his sleeve, Longcheng asked with a smile. Hiss. The little white python seemed to understand it, nodded vigorously, and then rubbed Longcheng's wrist affectionately. Got it. Longcheng smiled again. He also felt that he was very close to this little guy, so he would take it away with him, no matter who its original owner was. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of footsteps is getting closer and closer, and soon to reach this room. Longcheng couldn't delay any longer, and immediately cast a shave and left directly. Before leaving, Longcheng took the picture on the desk. Although I don't understand it, it seems to be a very powerful thing. Bang! The next moment, the door was pushed open, and Zhan Taomaru rushed in. But at this time the study was empty and no one was there. Did you run away? Marks that were cut through on the wall. It was obvious that people had come here and a fight had taken place. Who is so bold, dare to invade my laboratory? At this time, with the voice of the voice, a man who was wearing a suit walked in. I don't know. Zhan Taomaru shook his head and looked around again. There's no one here. Hee, it seems that he has been eaten by Jurmgunter. Maybe. Zhan Taomaru nodded, then frowned again. But I didn't see Jurmgunter either. Maybe it went to another room, maybe it became smaller and hid. It has its own ideas, and it doesn't even listen to my father. The man in the lab coat said with a smile, then walked straight to the desk. But the next moment, he suddenly froze, his eyes widened, and he let out a hysterical roar. Where is my map? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Through the ability to travel through multi-dimensional space, Longcheng directly left the building, jumped into the sky, used the moon step to leave Mary Joa, and went straight to Punk Hazard. Stuck his head out and looked down in Longcheng's sleeve, like a child going out for the first time. His eyes were full of curiosity, and even the waves on the sea could arouse its interest. Let me give you a name. There has to be a name. Longcheng thought about it while he was on his way, and after a while, he said very seriously. You'll be called Xiaobai from now on. Quote. Little White Python seemed a little speechless. After thinking about it for a long time, he came up with such a name. Little Bai. Sit tight, we are going to speed up. But obviously, Longcheng didn't care about its opinion at all, and has already started to use this name. After saying a word, then increase the speed to the fastest. 1 second is 10,000 meters. Xiaobai subconsciously wrapped his tail around Longcheng's wrist to keep his body stable. And for this name, it has also been passively accepted. Punk Hazard is located at the beginning of the New World. In the case of hurrying with all his strength, a small island appeared in the field of vision in a short time. It's here. Longcheng's mouth smiled, and after a few vertical jumps, he landed directly on the island. This is... But then, Longcheng couldn't help frowning. The island was filled with lavender gas, which was rarely highly poisonous. According to time calculations, Caesar Kalang should have returned to the island and dissipated the poisonous substances on the island. But at this point, things seem to be different. Longcheng's enhanced liver has super detoxification and ability, not even afraid of Magellan's poison, not to mention this near poisonous gas. The key is that in addition to Longcheng, there is Xiaobai. This newly collected pet was poisoned like this, it would be too wrong. Hiss. Just when Longcheng was worried, Xiaobai had already emerged from his sleeve, wandering around looking extremely excited. As for the ubiquitous poisonous gas, it doesn't seem to have any effect on it. Ah, well. Long Cheng was stunned and shook his head with a smile. Right, this guy punched himself hard and was cut into several pieces, but he didn't die. How could this poisonous gas be able to get it? I was really worried. Long Cheng didn't think about it anymore, and walked straight to the center of the island. If there is no deviation, Caesar Current is at the institute on the island. Who were attacked by poison gas before have also been taken as his subordinates. These people are of average strength, and Long Cheng doesn't have to worry about it at all, so he doesn't even bother to hide his tracks. Roar! But after walking for a long time, a beast roar came, and then, I saw one. A huge creature resembling a western dragon suddenly appeared. Fire dragon. Long Cheng glanced at it and smiled again. Presumably this is the artificial creature created by Vegapunk back then, but I didn't expect that it still remains on this island now. Although this fire dragon looks terrifying, it is actually of average strength. As soon as Long Cheng's face turns cold, he is ready to solve it. Roar! But at this moment, what Long Cheng didn't expect was that Xiaobai suddenly let out a roar, and then his body grew rapidly. The next moment, it became a giant of 300 or 400 meters, with a length of 1 or 2 meters in diameter. 183. Xiaobai's ability. Seeing Xiaobai, who suddenly became bigger and bigger than himself, Huolong blinked his eyes, obviously a little dazed. Hula. But then he reacted, as if he was provoked. He was extremely angry. He opened his mouth to face Xiaobai and spewed out a flame. Hiss. Xiaobai erected his upper body, but did not dodge, and was engulfed by the flames. Aren't you afraid of fire? Long Cheng stood aside and did not intend to help. With Xiaobai's strength, it was impossible to dodge just now. Since he didn't dodge, Long Cheng couldn't help but guess that this guy is not afraid of the flames besides. Not afraid of poison. Sure enough, as Long Cheng expected, the fire dragons after the flames were sprayed, Xiaobai was still standing there. Not injured, the scales on his body seemed to shine even more, and it seemed that the flames burned away the contaminated dust. Looking at Xiaobai again, he looked down at his shiny scales. With a smug expression, he took the flame of the fire dragon as a shower. Boom! And the next moment, Xiaobai suddenly jumped towards the fire dragon. Although the size has grown, Xiaobai's speed seems to be a little slower. But only relatively speaking, the action is actually very fast. Fire dragon is cumbersome, and where he can dodge, he is instantly entangled by Xiaobai. Kai! After wrapping around the fire dragon, Xiaobai suddenly tightened his grip. Click, click. Then, I heard a harsh sound, as if the bones of the fire dragon were twisted and broken. Roar! The pained fire dragon let out a roar, and a large amount of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Hiss! Wrapping the fire dragon tightly, Xiaobai spit out the core, and the next one opened his big mouth and bit down suddenly. Woo! Long Cheng's eyes widened, and in the screams of the fire dragon, he witnessed a wild hunting and eating. Blink of an eye, the screams of the fire dragon stopped, and Xiaobai's eating had just begun. After a while, there was only a large piece of blood left on the ground, not to mention meat, not even a bit of bone dregs. Looking at Xiaobai, who was still so slender, Long Cheng said in his heart that he was so big. Fire dragons, where did they all eat? At the same time, they were speechless for a while. Don't all snakes eat their prey alive? Xiaobai is a little different. Ah! No matter what, the fire dragon who guarded the door has been killed. Long Cheng smiled and continued to move forward. Xiaobai shrunk in size, stayed at 10, and did not return to Long Cheng's sleeves, but wandered in front, as if opening a road. Tatata walked about 10 miles. Not far from studying the scriptures. At this moment, a group of teens wearing protective clothing, carrying oxygen cylinders, and holding firearms appeared. Spot the intruder. Kill. Other party rushed over quickly, glanced at Xiaobai, and Long Cheng behind him, and immediately started shooting with a light drink. But their guns are not bullets, but poison gas. In this world, poison gas is more deadly than ordinary bullets. And this also explains why they all wear protective clothing. But unfortunately, what they don't know is that no matter Xiaobai or Longcheng, poisonous gas is meaningless. Hiss. Xiaobai spit out his core and looked at these people, letting the poison gas cover his whole body. Hula. The next moment, as if I was tired, then I opened my mouth and spewed out a large flame, like a pillar of fire, instantly sweeping the entire team. The suit is burnt out. Run. The face of the flames attack, the opponent panicked for a while, then turned around and ran away. But unfortunately, there were still more than a dozen people who could not escape and were completely engulfed by Xiaobai's flames. Quote. Seeing Xiaobai, who was like a child, excited to play with fire, Longcheng was stunned again. The heart, this is Xiaobai's original ability, or is it because he has eaten the fire dragon? The new ability is not good. No matter what, the power, scale, and application of this flame, Xiaobai is much more than the fire dragon. Okay. The enemy who couldn't escape was already burned to death. Looking at it still, Xiaobai, who was breathing fire everywhere, Longcheng quickly said something, and then burned it. Not even the corpse was left. Xiaobai shut his mouth, the flame in his mouth swallowed hard, he couldn't help burping, and 2 puffs of smoke came out from his nostrils. At this time, Longcheng walked to the corpse. Sure enough, the lower bodies of these corpses were all mechanical prosthetics, and Longcheng couldn't help but smile, and they were indeed the original prisoners. When Caesar experimented on the island and leaked poison gas, those prisoners who were imprisoned by the world government could not escape, and most of them died. Even if a small fraction survives, the lower limbs are permanently lost. Caesar returned to the island again, installed mechanical prosthetics for those people, and took them as his subordinates to form a team. Pity these people, who still regard Caesar as the savior, completely unaware that he is the culprit of the year. Repelling the troops, Punk Hazard at this time should have no other garrison forces. Longcheng continued to move forward, and Xiaobai, who had made great contributions again, was still walking in front, with a majestic look like a pioneer. After walking for a while, I saw an ice-cold building with blue-gray bricks, which was the Research Institute. Nothing else. Caesar Current should be inside. Longcheng didn't hesitate and walked over directly. Xiaobai continued to open the way, and even swept his tail, directly smashing the gate into a ball of scrap metal. Where is it? The Research Institute is very large and has many rooms. After entering, Longcheng muttered and looked around. Hoo-hoo. Gradually walked to the depths of the Research Institute, but Caesar Curran was never seen. Just as Longcheng frowned, a strong wind suddenly came from inside, and at the same time, the air suddenly became cold. Hoo-hoo-hoo. The next moment, I saw palm-sized snowflakes blowing suddenly from the depths of the corridor under the gust of wind. Longcheng frowned and continued to move forward in the wind and snow. But the blizzard was too big, and the snow quickly appeared on the body. Then, in the blink of an eye, Longcheng has turned into a snowman. At the same time, the whole person couldn't help but stop, as if sealed by snow. Except, Longcheng, Xiaobai's situation is similar. Hey, la la la. With a strange laugh, the wind and snow stopped, and a man with dark purple-blue hair, wearing horns, decoration, and a coat came out. Looking at the frozen dragon city, he said proudly. Monet, you are getting more and more capable. It's all well-mannered bosses, I'm just moving my hands. Immediately afterwards, a tall woman with long grass-green wavy hair came out, smiled, and stood respectfully behind the man. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read. 184. Stupid Caesar Current. This man is Caesar Curon, hiding in Punk Hassad, has been carrying out all kinds of dangerous and inhumane weapon tests. And this woman named Monet was not a prisoner on the island, as can be seen from her normal legs. She was Caesar's secretary, but she was actually a cadre of the Don Quixote family, and was placed here by Doflamingo to monitor Caesar. Caesar Current was of inferior character and timid. After the troops were defeated, Facing the dragon city that invaded the institute, they did not dare to fight head-on. Show up until the wind and snow froze Longcheng and the others. Hey, lol lol. Looking at the snowman-like dragon city, Caesar laughed again. Gotcha. But at this moment, with the sound of fine shredding, I saw the snow on Longcheng, and suddenly cracks appeared. Pung! The next moment, the snow burst suddenly, and Longcheng came out. This is... Seeing this scene, Caesar, who was proud just now, was stunned for a moment, his face full of confusion. Sure enough. Looking at Caesar, Longcheng smiled lightly. Just a little snow, how could it be possible to freeze him? But he was deliberately leading the enemy to show up. Such a clumsy method, Caesar Current was really fooled. Whoa! At this time, Xiaobai was shaking all over, shaking the snow off his body, spitting out his core and making a hissing sound, as if he was laughing at Caesar with Longcheng. Damn! Caesar Current does often do stupid things, but generally he has an IQ online. After all, he is a very good scientist. At this time, he had already figured it out, and when he saw that even the snake had tricked him, he couldn't help being annoyed for a while, and then he shouted loudly. Monet! Understand the boss. Monet's face sank, looked at Longcheng, and then shouted loudly. Snow Rabbit! Swish swish! The next moment, as Monet waved his arm, I saw countless snowballs, like white rabbits, rushing towards Longcheng. Monet is a snow girl who ate the snow fruit. As a natural ability person, she can turn her body into a snow element, and she can also control the snow at will. This trick, Snow Rabbit, is like a child's play in a snowball fight. In fact, its power is no less than that of guns and cannons, each of which can instantly smash the ground. And with such a dense coverage attack, it is a narrow range in the corridor, which has a great threat. Longcheng's face sank, and he was ready to deal with it. Boom! But at this moment, Xiaobai suddenly stood in front of him, and a huge fireball spewed out of his mouth, filling the entire corridor almost instantly. And Snow Rabbit, the moment it touched the fireball, immediately melted and evaporated, turning into a cloud of white vapor. At the same time, the local flames were also extinguished. The two cancelled each other out, and in the blink of an eye, countless white vapors filled the entire corridor like thick fog. Seeing this scene, Caesar and Monet couldn't help but be surprised. Whoosh! At this moment, a white light lacing came. It was Xiaobai. I saw Xiaobai spit out the core and went straight to Monet. Damn! Xiaobai's speed is very fast, Monet can't dodge in time, and his body is directly elementalized. Pung! Then, with a muffled sound, Xiaobai passed Monet through his body, but he couldn't hurt her. After all, Hu Xiaobai is an animal, he can't be armed and domineering, and he can't capture the entity of a person with natural ability. But it will breathe fire. After the blow is invalid, it turns its head directly, and it is a flame at Monet. Damn! Under the restraint of the flame, Monet's inability to be elementalized at will, and cursed again. At the same time cast other skills, want to kill Xiaobai. Of Xiaobai's rough skin and thick flesh, the next moment that ordinary snow can kill, Xiaobai and Monet fought. Seeing that Xiaobai was having a good time, Longcheng smiled and walked straight to Caesar Current. Gas lasso. Seeing Longcheng's calm appearance, Caesar couldn't help but become more and more timid, shouted loudly, and attacked first. I saw him wave his hand and put a mass of gas, like a noose, directly on Longcheng. At the same time, a lot of gas was created around the Dragon City. Hey, lol lol. The move succeeded, Caesar couldn't help but feel excited. He is a gas man who ate gas fruit. These gases are actually highly poisonous gas. In this case, the enemy will definitely be poisoned and fall. Pung! But what Caesar never imagined was that Longcheng had a slight dragon force and directly broke the gas lasso. Then, as if completely unaffected, he continued to walk towards Caesar. How is this possible? Caesar Curon, who was still proud just now, instantly widened his eyes, his face full of disbelief. How could his poisonous gas be ineffective? It seems that the troops did not report. Longcheng smiled. Obviously Caesar didn't know that he was not afraid of poison. Aeration castanets. To the accident, seeing the Dragon City approaching step by step, Caesar panicked again. With a loud shout, he directly threw a castanets at Longcheng. Boom! A large amount of gas is stored in this castanets, and when it is thrown in front of Longcheng, it explodes instantly with a loud noise. Hey, my gas is not only poisonous, but it can explode. Looking at the Dragon City engulfed by flames, Caesar laughed proudly again. Fools also know that gas is flammable. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded. This is when. Caesar was about to respond, but then he regained his senses, looked down, and his face changed greatly in an instant. The Dragon City, which should have been engulfed by the explosion, was not only unscathed, but actually came to him. This. Caesar's eyes widened, unable to understand. In such a narrow corridor, Longcheng wanted to reach him, only through the explosion of the gas castanets. In this case, how could it be unscathed? Is it an accident? Longcheng's face is calm, and his shave can travel through multi-dimensional space. In the eyes of others, and there are loopholes everywhere for him. Gas spray gun. Caesar really couldn't figure it out, but he couldn't think about it at this time. He shouted again, and a gas laser was sprayed out of his mouth, shooting straight at Longcheng. That concentrates the gas in the lungs and releases it suddenly. Its power is huge enough to melt steel. 100,000 tile-positive fist cannons. In the face of this powerful blow, Longcheng's face sank. He did not dodge, but directly greeted him with a punch. Boom! With a loud bang, the air cannon met the gas laser and blasted it away instantly. Immediately after, Longcheng's fists were inexhaustible, and he took advantage of the situation to hit Caesar. Bang! The next moment, with a muffled sound, the fist of Longcheng armed with domineering hit Caesar's face and slammed it out. 185. Lineage Factor Profile. Caesar Current is a scientific researcher, not a combatant, and his own strength is actually extremely poor. Even after eating a powerful devil fruit like the gas fruit, he was still vulnerable and could be called the weakest person with natural fruit ability. After being punched by Longcheng, Caesar was seriously injured and fell to the ground. Oops! Seeing that Caesar was knocked down, Monet frowned, and then rushed over to rescue him. But unfortunately, Xiaobai hasn't played enough. As a natural ability person who is only stronger than Caesar, how can she escape? Watching Longcheng walk towards Caesar, Monet could only be in a hurry. You want to? Caesar fell to the ground, looking at Longcheng with a gloomy face. He couldn't help it for a while, and then suddenly agitated. The breath revealed by Longcheng is clearly killing intent. Longcheng came to Punk Hazard this time to destroy Caesar's laboratory and cut off Kaido's source of artificial devil fruit. But even if it is destroyed here, as long as Caesar Curran is still alive, it is completely possible to build a new laboratory elsewhere. So once and for all, the solution is to kill Caesar directly. The Dragon City that came from the Naruto world is not a good man and a woman. For him, killing people is as simple as drinking water. Please, don't kill me. Caesar, who understood, was full of fear, and then he kept begging for mercy. Seeing that Longcheng was indifferent, he hurriedly threw out one condition after another. I can give you money. A lot of money. I still have a lot of weapons. A lot of inventions. All of them can be given to you. Wow, as long as you are not me. I am willing to be your slave. Longcheng was already ready to start, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but stop. After thinking for a while, he suddenly smiled and said, Then show me your results first. Gouda. Seeing Longcheng withdraw his hand, Caesar swallowed a sigh of relief, and then nodded quickly. Next, as the defeated, Casa and Monet took Longcheng to visit the institute and introduced his research results. Caesar went back to Punk Hazard and cooperated with Doflamingo, mainly to research various weapons, and then sell them everywhere through the black market. There are two main results so far. One is that this is the raw material for making artificial devil fruits. Doflamingo's factory in Dressrosa was obtained from Caesar to create artificial devil fruits. Another is mass-killing weapons, compressing a large amount of poisonous gas, and then using high-tech means to make it eat the animal-type devil fruit, thus becoming a living weapon, called the Kingdom of Death. Very good. After reading it, Longcheng nodded. Not because of Caesar's research results, on the contrary, because he has not conducted that research. Among the original works, one of Caesar's researches, and the other is the giant soldier experiment, that is, the study of transforming ordinary people into giants. Abducted many children from all over the world through Doflamingo, the living body of this study. Because this study has not been successful, the end result of those children died. Now it seems that due to the problem of time, Caesar has not carried out this study. Since he hasn't committed such an unforgivable sin, Longcheng can take him as a subordinate. Phew, that's great. Seeing Longcheng nodding, Caesar couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. In this way, his life was temporarily saved. At the same time, Caesar was thinking that the so-called refuge was only a temporary expedient. As soon as he found an opportunity, he ran away. What to do? Caesar's little abacus, how can Longcheng not think of it? At this time, Longcheng was also thinking about how to control Caesar if Caesar was taken as a subordinate. Unlike Moria, Moria had partners besides himself. These partners are Maria's weakness. For the lives of herself and her partner, Moria dare not betray Longcheng easily. This has been verified since Lola and the others successfully returned to the shadow. But Caesar is a selfish guy who will not harm his own interests because of others. And compared to the pirates, Caesar doesn't have to be active on the Great Route. If he finds a place to hide, it is really difficult for Longcheng to find him. Trouble. Really hard to control, and Longcheng doesn't have Luo's surgical fruit ability, so he can directly take Caesar's heart as a threat. A while, I couldn't think of a good idea, so I thought it would be better to just kill it. Seeing that Longcheng suddenly frowned and his face became gloomy again, Caesar couldn't help but panic, thinking that this would not change his mind. He was anxious for a while, and said quickly, "Actually, I have another research result. One more item." Hearing this, Longcheng's face sank instantly. Could it be that Caesar has already started the giant soldier experiment? "Master, please don't be angry. The reason why I didn't say it just now is because this is an immature research, definitely not thinking about it. Keep it secret." Caesar, who would be wrong, quickly explained. Then, he took out a picture from the drawer and showed it to Longcheng. "Well, this is..." Seeing this picture, Longcheng couldn't help but startled. "Master, you may not understand, but don't underestimate this picture." Caesar hurriedly introduced, and said with all his might, "You must know that this picture contains the most original secrets of living things. This picture of you." Longcheng looked at this picture and said something after a while. "It's not complete." Who was still proud just now, stumbled in an instant and almost fell. He thought that Longcheng couldn't understand it, but who knew that in one sentence, Longcheng would reveal the key. Longcheng is right, his picture is indeed incomplete. Or to be more precise, this is an unfinished product. This picture is called Bloodline Factor, which records the secret of the origin of human beings and all other creatures. To put it bluntly, it is genes. As long as you have this picture, you can recombine genes to generate various superpowers. This is not actually the result of Caesar's research, but he stole it from Vegapunk back then. A great scientist who surpassed human wisdom for 500 years, only Vegapunk can discover the secret of biological genes. But at that time, Vegapunk's research was in the early stage, so this lineage factor map was not finished yet. Later, after Caesar escaped from the world government, in addition to Research on artificial devil fruits and the kingdom of death, more thoughts were actually spent on this picture. But because it is only an incomplete and defective product at the initial stage, and the level involved is too high, Caesar has not made any progress. Resentful and annoyed, he couldn't help thinking, if he had a complete picture in his hand, it would be great. I have a complete one here. At this time, Longcheng suddenly opened his mouth and said something. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read. 186. Each plan. Ha! Hearing this, Caesar was dazed and couldn't help being stunned. That's it. While speaking, Longcheng took out a crumpled picture from his body, which was the one he had taken from his desk in the Holy Land Mary Joa before. This is. When the Dragon City opened, Caesar's eyes widened instantly, and after a while, he couldn't help shouting loudly. The completed, descent factor, atlas. Excited, Caesar hurried forward to grab the map from Longcheng. Just take a look. When Longcheng raised his hand, he folded the picture and put it into his arms again. Ah! Caesar was startled again, and then suddenly knelt in front of Longcheng with a thud, his forehead slammed on the ground. Master, please give this picture to my servant. For you. Longcheng's mouth smiled and asked leisurely. Why? Because only I can unravel the secret of this picture. Can extract the blood factor, and create powerful warriors with various abilities. Caesar was excited for a while, and looked at Longcheng with burning eyes. His face was full of, give me, I want. Is that so? Longcheng rubbed his chin with his fingers, pondered for a moment, and suddenly said with a smile. Then see how you behave in the future. The table. Caesar staggered again, and then continued to plead. Master, I will definitely obey. Shut up. But don't wait. After Caesar finished speaking, Longcheng's face suddenly turned cold. If you talk nonsense again, don't talk about this picture, and even your life, I will take it back. Gouda. Under Longcheng's real murderous aura, Caesar swallowed and spit, and then he regained his composure, not daring to say any more. I took this picture from Mary Hoya before, but I just thought this picture was special and smooth. But Longcheng never imagined that this was actually a bloodline factor map. As a traveler, how could he not know the name of the bloodline factor? Of artificial devil fruit or the super soldier of 66, it is actually related to the bloodline factor. Put it bluntly, this is the genetic modification technology of this world. Since this is the bloodline factor map, the owner of the previous building should be the famous Vegapunk. Only know that Vegapunk is super, ahead of this era by 500 years, now works for the world government. But unexpectedly, his laboratory was actually located in the Holy Land Mary Joa. This way, Vegapunk is likely to be directly under the 5 old stars, or even IM. And since it is Vegapunk's laboratory, it is no wonder that it is so strange, covering so many field projects. At the same time, Longcheng couldn't help looking at Xiaobai next to him, who was also kidnapped from the Vegapunk laboratory. Can become bigger and smaller, its abnormal defense power is comparable to the self-healing ability of immortality, and it can also devour the artificial creature fire dragon to obtain the ability of flame. All the signs, Longcheng couldn't help thinking, this guy can't be an artificial creature created by Vegapunk. It's interesting. For the time being. Xiaobai, obviously this bloodline factor map is more precious. As long as this map is available, Longcheng can carry out genetic research, and even if there is no devil fruit, he can obtain various superpowers. Of course, the field of genetics is extremely difficult and esoteric, and even if you have this map, you will not be able to achieve results in a short period of time. But, thinking of this, Longcheng looked at Caesar in front of him again, and a light smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. How does Zheng Wuri control Caesar? Now that he has this picture in his hand, it is like a carrot hanging in front of a donkey. Are you afraid that Caesar will not obey the command? Of course, if you want to study the bloodline factor, you still have to rely on Caesar, but it is definitely not now. After waiting for a period of time, after taking full control of Caesar, Longcheng will give him this picture to study the bloodline factor. I will stay here for a month. Taking back his thoughts, Longcheng suddenly said something to Caesar. Master, you can stay here. As long as you need it, your subordinates will do their best to do it. Caesar's face was full of ingratitude, and he said that a month would be enough for a year. The longer he lived in Longcheng, the more opportunities he would have to steal the complete bloodline factor map. Okay. Looking at the flattering Caesar, Longcheng smiled and said nothing more. Caesar's little thought be concealed from Longcheng. It is a pity that, under the deliberate precautions of Longcheng, with Caesar's IQ, he will never try to steal the bloodline factor map in this life. Next, Caesar arranged the best room in the research institute for Longcheng, and Longcheng temporarily lived in Punk Hazard. Appointment with Jinbei before, and we will meet in Dressrosa in 2 months. It is still early, and there is no need for Longcheng to appear in the enemy's base camp early. Moreover, going to Dressrosa this time, it is bound to end with Doflamingo. As one of the Chihuahai, the strength of the Don Quixote family should not be underestimated, and Longcheng must also prepare. During this period of time, in addition to, you can strengthen one more skill, you can also practice it to further improve your strength. Monet. Think of Doflamingo, you can't help but think of Monet. Even Caesar did not know that Monet was actually a spy placed by Doflamingo's side. Longcheng has the perspective of God, and it is clear about these. After conquering Caesar, Monet expressed his willingness to continue following on the grounds that the boss's boss is the big boss. In fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to go undercover beside Longcheng. As a cadre of the Don Quixote family, Monet is very aware of the threat of Dragon City to Doflamingo. But Longcheng did not dismantle it, but happily kept her by his side. The exposed spy can no longer be called a spy, but a tool for disseminating false information. This will definitely play an important role in dealing with Doflamingo. In addition, although he has already controlled the whereabouts of Longcheng, Monet should not report to Doflamingo. Even if it is reported, Doflamingo will not act. Will never expose Monet as a spy until they have the absolute certainty of getting rid of Longcheng. Therefore, Monet will ignore it for the time being. Let's get started. Any more, Longcheng gathered his mind and began to practice. It's only been over a month, in addition to physical training, the focus is still domineering. I have basically mastered the domineering of armed sex before. In this short month, although it is impossible to learn advanced armed sex, at least the foundation must be consolidated. 187. Confluence. A month later, it was almost time to calculate. Longcheng finished his training and went to Dressrosa. Xiaobai, there were also Caesar and Monet with him. Hearing that Longcheng was going to deal with brother Doflamingo, Caesar felt 10,000 reluctance in his heart. It was too dangerous. But under Longcheng's gloomy eyes, how could he dare to say nothing? As for Monet, even if Longcheng doesn't take the initiative, she will find a way to go with her. And according to what Longcheng said, the reason for bringing the two of them is to enhance their combat power. They will face the entire Don Quixote family. Almost there. Standing on the bow deck, Longcheng once again displayed his arrogance, and couldn't help nodding his head. After this month's training, the aura of armament has grown from only enough to cover both arms to 1/3 of the body surface. The duration has also increased from more than 10 minutes to more than half an hour. Longcheng's mastery of the domineering of armed color can already be said to be basically proficient. In this way, in addition to the power of domineering itself is improved, the use is also more flexible, and it can be combined with other skills. In addition, domineering, as a potential physical ability, does not belong to the category of skills, so it cannot be strengthened by the system. Punk Hazard was not very far from Dressrosa, and after the ship sailed for 2 days at sea, they arrived at Dragon City smoothly. Put it on. Before landing, in order to prevent his identity from being exposed, Longcheng himself, together with Caesar and Monet, put on a wide cloak and covered his entire body. As for Xiaobai, it has once again become more than 10 centimeters in length, and is hidden in Longcheng's sleeves. This is the toy country of love and passion. After disembarking and entering the city, Longcheng couldn't help but admire the surrounding scenery. Dressrosa is a resort-style tropical island full of flowers and delicious food. Passionate music played in the streets and alleys, and beautiful and sexy dancers danced hard to the rhythm. Of course, in addition to these, the biggest feature here is those dolls that live with human beings and have life. Seeing these dolls, Longcheng hummed softly, his face suddenly cold. The so-called dolls are actually real people, who were transformed by the cadre of Don Quixote family, Sugar, with the power of devil fruit. And once human beings are turned into dolls, they not only have to perform all kinds of heavy labor according to the contract. Their original existence will also completely disappear from other people's memories. Imagine how cruel it is to turn your body into a doll and look at the original parents, wives, children, and friends, but completely forget yourself. Therefore, behind this seemingly fairy tale country is actually a sin that annihilates humanity. Monet followed by, looking at Longcheng to see those. The eyes of the dolls were secretly surprised. As a cadre of the Don Quixote family, of course she knows the truth behind the doll, and Sha Tang is also her own sister. But what she is puzzled is that looking at the appearance of Longcheng, she can't figure out how it seems to know the inside story, so she can only wait. Wait and see. At this time, he had already boarded Dressaro, and as a professional spy, he chose to continue to lurk. Only after waiting until the critical moment, contact Doflamingo and deal a fatal blow to Longcheng, this side. After all, this is the base camp of the enemy, and Longcheng has no intention of sightseeing, it is still the most important thing. Then lead the two of them straight to the Avenue of Lovers. So-called Lovers Avenue is a street in Dressrosa. It is named because of the affectionate couples everywhere. It is also a scenic spot. Many foreign tourists will come here to stroll. One is to feel the breath of love. The second is to try your luck and see if you can find the other half you like. Longcheng came here, of course, not to seek an affair. Walking around the street, I saw a sign under a wall somewhere, and a smile appeared on my mouth. Immediately afterwards, Longcheng took the two of them to the first hotel on the east side of the street. Dressrosa is a tourist island, so there are many hotels, not to mention the Avenue of Lovers. Are you going to stay first? Monet followed behind, thinking in his heart. First find a foothold, then inquire about information, and then take specific actions, but it is also in line with common sense. But to Monet's surprise, after opening the room, Longcheng did not go to his room, but went to the one at the end of the corridor and tapped lightly 3 times. Dang dang dang. No one spoke inside, but after a while, there were 3 knocks inside. Longcheng smiled and knocked again 7 times, 3 times faster and 4 times slower. Creak! Exclamation mark. The next moment, the door opened, and Longcheng took Caesar and Monet and went in directly. This is. Who was puzzled, came in and saw that there was actually a Murloc living inside. And when you look closely, you can't help but change your face in an instant. It is Hexia Jinping, one of the first 7 Wuhai. His Royal Highness. After seeing Longcheng, Jinping's face was full of excitement. Since the separation, he has been worried about whether Longcheng will encounter danger. At this time, seeing that Longcheng is safe and sound, he can finally breathe a sigh of relief. So it is. Monet looked back at God and nodded again. Has long been known that Jinping has taken refuge in Longcheng. It was strange before, why Longcheng went to Punk Hazard alone. It turned out that this capable general had already been ambushed in Dressrosa ahead of time. That case, Dragon City's goal at the beginning was Dressrosa. Immediately afterwards, Jinbei went out and called Garrett from the adjacent room. In this way, the first 3 members of the Iron Wall Pirates 3 meet again. How is the situation on Fishman Island? 3 of them sat down, Longcheng asked directly. This. Jinbei hesitated a little and looked at Caesar and Monet next to him. It doesn't matter, they are my subordinates now. Longcheng smiled and said directly. You don't need to hide anything from them. Understood. Jinping nodded, and then explained their situation on Fishman Island in detail. As expected by Longcheng, with overwhelming strength, and under the circumstance of mental calculation, he successfully defeated the new Murloc pirates and the Flying Pirates. Among them, Hadi Jones and his group, because of taking a lot of fierce drugs, their bodies quickly aged after the effect of the drugs. The little time left will be accompanied by a whole body of pain. In this way, it can be considered as revenge for his murder of Princess Otoji. As for Vanderdecken Ix, who coveted Bai Xing, he had been forced to wash away his target fruit mark on Bai Xing, and was imprisoned in the prison deep in the palace of Ryugu. Good. After listening, Longcheng nodded. In this way, the hidden danger of Fishman Island is solved. Your Highness. Immediately afterwards, Jinbei spoke again. According to what you said, I did not lead the Sun Pirates in order to avoid stun snakes. But with the 5 of us alone, how can we deal with the entire Don Quixote family? Of course it's not just us. Longcheng smiled and looked confident. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read. 188. The Legendary Fairy. Years ago, the Don Quixote family, the royal family of Dressrosa, entered the Holy Land of Marijoa and became a dragon. The Riku family will be replaced by the new royal family. Years ago, Don Quixote Huoming, the ancient sage, led his wife and 2 sons to leave the Holy Land Marijoa and gave up the identity of the dragon. Before, Don Quixote Doflamingo, who lost his identity as a god, returned to Dressrosa and plotted to usurp the throne of King Riku III. Briefly narrating the history of Dressrosa's change of throne, Longcheng looked at everyone and said with a smile. Because Doflamingo usurped the throne by conspiracy, there are still a lot of rebel forces in Dressrosa. As long as we find and integrate these forces, we can deal with the Don Quixote family. So, after listening to this, in addition to surprise, everyone couldn't help but nod their heads for a while. If it is really as Longcheng said, the plan is indeed feasible. Compared with Jinbei and the others, Monet was more surprised by the details of the history that Longcheng knew, even more than she, who was the cadre of the Don Quixote family. But then, there was another sneer. As far as she knew, there were indeed rebel forces in the city, but they were just some remnants of defeated soldiers who slipped through the net. It's not going to be a climate at all, let alone against the Don Quixote family. From Monet's point of view, Longcheng is after all a bamboo basket to draw water, just busy. But Your Highness, those rebel forces must hide very deeply in order to avoid Doflamingo. Where should we go to find them? At this time, Jinbei spoke again, his brows furrowed and his face full of sadness. Exactly, I know a place that is where those people gather. Longcheng smiled and then said to the crowd. It's better to hit the sun instead of choosing a day. Let's go now, who wants to be with me? I'm going. I. Hearing this, Garrett was the first to raise his hand. And Monet, who was next to him, also responded. Disgusted with both hard work and trouble, looked away. Jinpei also wanted to be with Longcheng, but thinking about his identity as a Murloc, plus his appearance was relatively vicious, I was afraid that it would scare the other party, so he didn't answer. Okay, just the 2 of you with me. Longcheng smiled and pointed to Garrett and Monet. Garrett looked excited. She and Shinpei arrived 2 days early and hid in the hotel all the time, but she was so suffocated that she could finally go out to play this time. Monet seemed to have a normal face, but he was also secretly proud. I didn't expect that Longcheng would know the stronghold of the rebel forces. If he can find it, he will tell Doflamingo in the future, just to catch all these people. Immediately after, Longcheng and Garrett, Monet put on his cloak and left the hotel. But to Monet's surprise, Dragon City did not search in the city, but went straight to the north of Dressrosa. Could it be that the rebel forces are not in the city, but hiding in the suburbs? This is. After a while, under the leadership of Longcheng, they went to a steel suspension bridge by the sea. Looking up, I saw another small island on the opposite side. Monet couldn't help but startled. Why did he come? As far as Monet knew, the island opposite the suspension bridge was called Greenbit, an uninhabited island covered with tall vegetation. Legend has it that in the past, Dressrosa could pass the suspension bridge to reach Greenbit. But 200 years ago, a large number of ferocious fighting fish appeared around. Whether it is passing ships or passing through the bridge deck, they will be attacked by fighting fish. So now, no one is going there anymore. Could it be? Thinking of this, Monet couldn't help being stunned. Could it be that while the rebels were hiding in Greenbit and thinking, Longcheng had already stepped onto the suspension bridge, and Garrett was jumping over? Monet did not hesitate and immediately followed. And just a few steps on the bridge, there are betta fish sticking out of the sea. So-called fighting fish is a fish with cow-like horns and a body as large as a cow and a horse. He is also brutal and extremely aggressive. Puffy. The next moment, the group of fighting fish jumped out of the water, and their sharp horns aimed at Longcheng and the others. Bang bang bang. Longcheng didn't care and walked straight forward, but any fighting fish that came to him would slap directly back into the sea. Whoosh. Garrett thought it was troublesome, so he jumped hard, and jumped directly across the bridge with his amazing bouncing. As for Monet, as a natural ability person, he is not afraid of such physical attacks at all. Therefore, Duyu, which made the local residents fearful, did not cause any trouble to Longcheng at all. After successfully crossing the suspension bridge, under the leadership of Longcheng, we headed directly to the depths of the island. As the outside world said, there are tall vegetation everywhere, and there is no trace of human activities, just like the virgin forest. Are you hiding here? Looking at the surrounding environment, Monet couldn't help but wonder, is there really anyone here? Where is it? In fact, at this time, Longcheng was also muttering in his heart. As far as he knew, the Dongdada kingdom was located in Greenbit, somewhere underground in the forest. The Dongdada kingdom was originally very small, covered by forests, and still underground, so it was really hard to find. Forget it, shout. After searching in the forest for a long time, there was no clue. Longcheng simply stopped and shouted directly at the surrounding. The Dongdada family, I am a descendant of Rolando, I have something to ask for your help. The Dongdada family, I am a descendant of Rolando, I have something to do. Quote. Looking at the Dragon City who kept shouting, not only Monet, but also Garrett looked confused. Can this make people shout out? After all, the other party is not a fool, how could he be so obvious? After shouting for a long time, nothing happened. Longcheng also shouted that he was tired and stopped to rest. Wow! And when Monet and the others pouted, with a soft sound, a relatively large fox emerged from the bushes. Are you really the descendant of Rolando? Then, to Monet and Garrett's surprise, the fox spoke. Of course. Longcheng bowed his body, looked at the top of the fox's head, and nodded seriously. If not, how do I know that you are here, and how do I know that you have a good relationship with my ancestors? This is. And at this time, Monet and Garrett saw that a man stood up in the fox fur, a little man with only more than 20 centimeters. The Dongdada family, that is, the little human family. That's great. Hearing Longcheng's explanation, the little human race looked excited and continued. Respected descendants of Rolando, Dongdada Kingdom welcomes you, please come with me. Good. Longcheng smiled and nodded, his heart truly deserved to be a pure, kind, and easily deceived little human race. Immediately afterwards, under the leadership of this little human race, Longcheng and the others came to the depths of the jungle, a very secret country, which is the kingdom of the little human race. Please download the underlined version of the novel. 189. Ally. Before, there was a human island who did evil, and it was the big talker, Rolando, who defeated the group of humans together with the little humans. And it's also Rolando, who taught the little people about plants. Since then, Rolando has become a hero in the eyes of the little people. This is why Longcheng has to use the name of Rolando's descendants. I have to say that it is really useful for a small human race who is pure and kind, and repays kindness. Lando, Dragon City, welcome you to the kingdom of Dongdada. After listening to Longcheng's lie, under the leadership of King Gancho, all the little people came out to welcome him. Seeing this scene, Garrett and Monet were completely dumbfounded, and they were greeted with such a warm reception by just talking nonsense. At the same time, Monet couldn't help but think of the legend of the Dressrosa fairy. Thank you, Your Majesty. Longcheng smiled and was about to say a few polite words. He's lying. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, and then, I saw a burly old man walking over. He is not a descendant of Rolando at all. Lie. The little people couldn't help but startled, and after a while, they regained their senses and stared at Longcheng with wide eyes. Is what King Liku said true? Dragon City Lando. King Liku. Not caring about the little human race's reaction, Longcheng couldn't help but slightly widened his eyes when he heard the name. King Riku, that is King Riku III who was robbed of the throne by Doflamingo, did not expect to meet him here. If the rebel army is used to fight against the Don Quixote family, and there is still a lack of a caller, obviously no one is more suitable than King Riku. In addition to Longcheng, Monet was also surprised when he saw King Liku, and then sneered secretly. Opportunity, and must pass this information to Doflamingo. I'm sorry. Immediately afterwards, Longcheng came back to his senses and directly admitted to the little human race. I did lie, I am not a descendant of Rolando. Damn. Be deceived, the little people are full of anger, and they will expel Longcheng. What's your purpose in coming here? At this time, King Liku came over and looked at Longcheng with a serious face. He could see that Longcheng was intentionally looking for the kingdom of Dongdada. If so, there must be a purpose. Because I'm looking for allies against Doflamingo. Longcheng also suddenly looked serious and did not hide it. A lot of resistance. Hearing this, King Riku was stunned for a moment, and then shook his head with a gloomy expression. Young man, don't waste your life in vain. Doflamingo's power is simply not something you can compete with. You don't need to worry about this. Longcheng smiled, looked at King Liku and asked back. Are you willing to be taken away from the throne like this? Who can be the king can do anything, as long as it can bring happiness to the people. King Riku shook his head, then said with a smile. Now in Dressrosa, everyone lives very happily. Happiness. Longcheng sneered at the corner of his mouth and continued. When you are alone at night, don't you feel that something is missing in your heart, as if you have forgotten someone important? Important people. King Riku was startled again, and then his brows were furrowed. He did feel that way from time to time, but he just couldn't remember it. King Liku, you have a granddaughter, who is her father and who married your beloved princess. He is. King Liku was once again stunned. In his memory, in addition to the queen, daughter, and granddaughter, there seemed to be a tall figure in the family, but no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't remember anything about that person. Information. Don't think about it, this is the ability of the devil fruit, which completely seals your memory of that person. Longcheng waved his hand, ignoring the dazedness of King Liku, and continued. Behind the happiness of Dressrosa, there is actually great pain. Countless people, like you, have lost important people without knowing it. And those forgotten people are in the dark awaiting your rescue. The forgotten. King Liku. At this time, Longcheng's face suddenly became serious, and he suddenly asked sharply. As a king, shouldn't you shoulder this responsibility? But. King Liku frowned, his brows filled with struggle. In fact, he knew that Doflamingo was definitely not a benevolent monarch, but with the strength of the Don Quixote family, he was powerless to resist. Sorry, I lied to you. At this time, Longcheng no longer paid attention to King Liku, but turned to the little human race and explained. The reason I lied is to find you. And the reason why I want to find you is because I have important news to tell you. Important news. Yes, news about your Princess Mancheri. Mancheri. Your Highness the Princess. Hearing this name, whether it is King Gancho or other small human races, their faces are full of tension. Do you know where she is? No. Longcheng nodded and said with a serious expression. Princess Mancheri, and 500 little people, were all imprisoned by the Don Quixote family and became coolies in their factories. What? It turned out to be so. No wonder I can't find them all the time. It's abominable. The princess must be rescued. Hearing this, the little human race was a burst of indignation, and then they all shouted that they were going to save people. Wait. At this time, King Liku hurriedly spoke, temporarily stopping the villain, and then looked at Longcheng with a hint of suspicion. Is it true that you said that Princess Mancheri was caught by Doflamingo? Did you deliberately deceive the villains in order to obtain their help? Yes. Hearing this, the little people woke up like a dream, and looked at Longcheng again. After all, you have lied to us once, are you lying to us again? Do I need to panic? Longcheng smiled and asked again. Even if I don't tell the news, can the villains accept Doflamingo's rule? Can't. In unison with a resolute look. In fact, 90 years ago, the royal family of Dressrosa was still the Don Quixote family. At that time, the little people were treated as slaves and forced to do all kinds of coolies. Later, the Riku family ascended the throne, which lifted the slavery of the little people, and with the legend of the fairies, made humans no longer disturb the little people. Therefore, the little people have a good relationship with the Riku family, but they are old enemies with the Don Quixote family. So, no matter what, they will resist Doflamingo. But King Liku also understood the villain's decision, but he was still hesitant for a while. He really didn't want to see more sacrifices. To show sincerity. At this time, Longcheng spoke again and said with a smile. Let me rescue your granddaughter, Rebecca, first. Philo reminds you. 3 things to read. 190. Arena One-Hit Mail. As Longcheng said, even without his arrival, the little people will rebel against Doflamingo, and their cooperation is a matter of course. But what I didn't expect was that I met King Liku. King Riku, who has already been beaten by Doflamingo and has lost his fighting spirit, wants him to stand up, not just a little bit of saliva. Longcheng wanted to rescue Rebecca, not just to show sincerity, but to let her impress the king of Powerhouse. After all, Rebecca also wanted to overthrow Doflamingo. That's it. Leaving Garrett and Monet temporarily in the kingdom of Dondada, Longcheng returned to Dressrosa alone, and then came to the bullfighting arena. There are a large number of sword fighters here, and various bloody battles are staged every day. And Rebecca, as a prisoner of the gladiator, was imprisoned here at this time. The so-called prisoner sword fighters are people who once disobeyed Doflamingo and were forced to fight with swords here. Although it is said that after accumulating 100 profits, you will be able to recover your freedom. But against all kinds of powerful opponents every day, very few people can survive 100 games, let alone win 100 games. Therefore, the prisoner sword fighter, the final result is in the pain again and again, and finally die. Although King Riku has lost his fighting spirit, he is determined to rescue his poor granddaughter Rebecca. It is a pity that his own strength is average, and he is already old, so he can't even break into the bullfighting arena, let alone save people. How to do it? The bullfighting arena is one of the top officials of the Don Quixote family, and Diamante, codenamed Square, is in charge. But with the strength of Longcheng, he did not take him seriously. But if you break in hard, it will inevitably cause a riot, which will attract Doflamingo's attention. Dragon City already has a complete plan to attack Dressrosa this time, and it is not appropriate for him to reveal his identity now. I want to sign up. After a little thought, Longcheng walked into the arena, found the person in charge and said directly, I'm going to be a sword fighter. Anyway, get in first. As long as you find Rebecca, you can easily take her away with Shave and Moonstep. It is also a gladiator, and the activity area is the same. It should be easy to find Rebecca, so Longcheng directly signed up for Gladiator. As a fighting game, as long as it is a living person who can bleed, it can entertain the audience, so it can become a sword fighter. So the registration process is just to leave a name. Longcheng couldn't help but feel proud of becoming a sword fighter. But what he didn't expect was that he was thrown to a sword and pushed directly into the ring before he had contact with other sword fighters. My Nima. Standing in the center of the ring, looking at the enthusiastic audience around, Longcheng cursed. He was here to find someone, and he didn't want to compete. But if he left the ring and rushed into the rest area of the gladiator at this time, it would be contrary to his original thought. Forget it, that's it. Speaking of which, the ring is also a place where sword fighters meet. As long as he has been standing in the ring, he will definitely see Rebecca. As for how to stand in the ring all the time, it's easy, just keep winning. The first person to deal with this newcomer is our lovely fighting lion Ah Zhao. At this time, as the host shouted, the opponent took the stage. What I didn't expect was that it flew other swordsmen, but a lion. Tear him apart. Eat him. Get his guts out. Seeing this lion appear, the surrounding audience couldn't help but let out bursts of wild shouts. Seeing this scene, Longcheng couldn't help sneering at the corner of his mouth. Obviously, as an unknown newcomer, he was purely used as a blood-spraying tool. The arena arranges a ruthless beast, and seeing this lion has been hungry for a long time, in order to make the picture as bloody as possible, so as to stimulate the audience's attention. Looking at the performance of the audience, I can't wait. Roar. Just as Longcheng was thinking about it, with a roar, the hungry fighting lion had already pounced on him. At the same time, the audience also stood up subconsciously, clenched their fists and widened their eyes, waiting to see the scene where Longcheng's neck was bitten off. Bang! But unfortunately, Longcheng turned slightly sideways, easily dodging the lion's bite. Then take advantage of the situation and kick it directly on the lion's abdomen. Although he didn't use any skills, he didn't even use his full strength, but with Dragon City Gundam, 7000 Dao strength. Under this foot, the huge fighting lion was directly kicked out. Bang! The next moment, there was another muffled sound, and the fighting lion fell directly into the audience. The lion fighting lion, who got up immediately after the roar, had already been smashed to pieces, let out an angry roar, and pounced on the surrounding audience. Ah! Run! Help! When this happened suddenly, the audience was terrified, shouting and fleeing, and the auditorium instantly became a mess. Hee, that's funny. Longcheng sat in the middle of the ring, watching the lion chasing the audience, a burst of joy. The original sword fighter and the audience had already changed their identities at this time. However, the arena was stationed by members of the Don Quixote family, which quickly quelled the disturbance and restored order again. A newcomer who can kick a flying lion. His next opponent is the ruthless slasher Meadows. Although it was excessive, Longcheng's performance just now made the arena recognize his strength. No longer used as a pure blood-spraying prop, this time we have arranged an opponent for Zheng. After the host announced, a sturdy man in leopard skin who could easily swing a two-handed axe in one hand walked up. Boy, I'm sorry. There are no rules in the bullfighting arena, only life and death. After Meadows came to power, he roared and rushed directly to Dragon City. He is also one of the prisoner sword fighters. In order to be free, he must win 100 victories. Bang! But unfortunately, how could he be the opponent of Longcheng? It was just a wrong body, and Longcheng stunned it directly with a palm. This is. Seeing that Meadows was knocked down with a single blow, everyone was stunned, their faces dazed. Amazing. Until a long while, the host let out an excited roar. This newcomer is amazing. I haven't seen such a powerful newcomer in a long time. I really want to see him being killed. Immediately afterwards, the audience also recovered and couldn't help roaring with excitement. And the more powerful a person is, the more people want to see his blood splattered. The arena knew this, and then began to send out sword fighters one by one. Newcomer named Long Yi, if he can survive today, will become a new star in the arena. If you can't hold it, then use his blood to heat up the atmosphere in the arena. As a result, more than a dozen people in a row were all knocked to the ground, and Longcheng didn't even make a second move. From beginning to end, not to mention making Longcheng bleed, even the corner of his clothes didn't rub against it. Quote. Seeing this, whether it was the host or the audience, everyone was stunned. Hey, funny boy. At the same time, in the arena office, Diamante saw the whole process through the screen, and smiled and ordered. Let Rebecca play, the duel between the undefeated daughter and the one-hit man, it's exciting to think about it. 191. My aunt also came too. Go to hell, you rubbish. A woman with dirty blood. Shame on Dressrosa. Next gladiator was sent, but this time it was a girl. And when they saw her appear, the audience who had been shouting to let Longcheng die, instantly changed their stance and aimed unanimously at her. 16 or 17 years old, with long pink hair, wearing a Roman-style helmet, and almost no armor. Longcheng glanced at it and couldn't help but smile, finally waiting for Rebecca. Rookie, one-hit man. And Rebecca, the undefeated daughter. Whose record was broken. It's so bloody, I can't wait. With the exaggerated roar of the host, the gong for the start of the game sounded. Rebecca's sword skills were taught by Cyrus, who turned into a doll, but Rebecca, who was kind-hearted, didn't want to hurt anyone, so Cyrus only taught defensive moves. After becoming a sword fighter, Rebecca only passively defends every match, leading her opponent to the edge of the ring, taking advantage of her unpreparedness to defeat her and winning. So after so many games, Rebecca has neither hurt anyone nor herself. In this bloody bullfighting arena, it is nothing short of a miracle. And Rebecca's move is called the sword dance against the water. Swish. After boarding the ring, Rebecca held swords in both hands and stared at Longcheng, but did not take the initiative to attack. Longcheng looked at Rebecca up and down, but didn't move. Then, in the excited shouts of the audience, the two stared at each other for nearly 5 minutes. This game is it's really unexpected. Two of them didn't move, and even the commentator, who was eating by his mouth, didn't know what to say. One-hit man, come on. Kill that stinky woman. You two bastards, hurry up. But the audience was unhappy, shouting insults, and throwing all kinds of garbage into the ring at the same time. Diamante in the office, looking at the scene on the screen, couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He originally wanted to see a tit-for-tat fight, but who would have imagined it would be like this? This is a bullfighting arena, not a blind date. Tell them, if they don't do it again, there will be dozens of guns aimed at them at the same time. Fire. Diamante's face sank, and he said something directly. The subordinate next to him took the order and went to arrange it immediately. It doesn't look like that. Before Diamante's order was delivered, in the ring, listening to the abuse around him, Longcheng scratched his head, then swayed and disappeared from the spot in an instant. Who had been on guard all the time, suddenly disappeared from Longcheng, and her expression changed instantly. At the same time, elevate the perception to the very back. Rebecca is actually good at seeing, and being domineering, so how could she have practiced such a strange sword dance against the water? The next moment, Rebecca suddenly realized that Longcheng was behind her, and she was about to hurriedly resist. But unfortunately, although Rebecca's anger was perfect, her body couldn't keep up. Bang! With a muffled sound, Longcheng slashed the back of Rebecca's neck with a knife. Immediately after, Rebecca rolled her eyes and fainted. Quote. Seeing this scene, everyone was instantly dumbfounded. Immediately after reacting, a burst of excited shouts broke out. One-hit man shot. He knocked down Rebecca. The myth of invincibility is broken. One-hit man. Kill that filthy woman. Kill her. Kill her. Clap. Amid the excited and frantic shouts of the audience, Longcheng stretched out his hand. Instead of continuing to attack, he supported Rebecca, who was about to fall to the ground. This is. Audience was startled again. The shouting stopped abruptly, and looked at Longcheng in doubt, not understanding what he was going to do. Whoosh! But the next moment, with a soft sound, Longcheng's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. In addition to him, there is Rebecca being held by him. Quote. Looking at the empty arena, everyone was dazed and couldn't react for a while, not knowing what happened. Quote. Asshole. It wasn't until a moment later that Diamante, who was looking at the screen, came back to his senses and shouted frantically. That bastard in one-hit man. He took Rebecca. Quick, send everyone out and bring them back. Rebecca is not only a prisoner sword fighter in the arena, but also the granddaughter of King Riku. If he escaped, it would be very unfavorable to the Don Quixote family. He actually lost sight of others. Thinking of Doflamingo's angry face after learning about it, Diamante was mad. Damn one-hit man. And it wasn't until this time that Diamante realized that the other party was probably not a sword fighter, but someone who came to save people. The most annoying thing is that he not only succeeded, but also rescued people under his nose. Quote. A bunch of idiots. Use shaving to jump directly into the sky, and when everyone is still staring at the ring, use the moon step to leave quickly. Presumably the arena was already in a mess, and Longcheng couldn't help but smile. Immediately afterwards, she glanced at Rebecca in her arms. Her expression was very calm. Although he was saving people, he didn't have time to explain, and he was worried that Rebecca would resist, so he simply knocked her unconscious. It looked more like he kidnapped Rebecca. But in any case, although it took some hands and feet, it was generally smooth. Immediately afterwards, the Dragon City Moon Step performed with all its strength and went straight to Greenbit in the north. Boom! Soon, it had reached the coast, and when Longcheng continued on its way, with a muffled sound, 3 liquid steel in the shape of a whale flew up from the ground and hit him directly. Whoosh! Longcheng was stunned for a moment, then swayed, dodged directly, and then landed on the ground. At this time, I saw a woman standing on the ground, with long brown and black hair, dressed as a dancer, mature and sexy. Oh, it's kind of interesting. In fact, just by looking at the attack just now, I already guessed the identity of the opponent. It was Violet. The second daughter of King Liku, the former princess of Dressrosa. After Doflamingo plotted to usurp the throne, he took a fancy to Violet's ability to stare at the fruit, and after capturing her, asked her to join Don Quixote family. Agreed to save King Riku's life on the condition that he became the killer of the Don Quixote family, codenamed Violet. Longcheng had just kidnapped Rebecca, but unexpectedly, his aunt came over. Violet's ability to stare at the fruit has a clairvoyance. Longcheng kidnapped Rebecca and escaped from the arena. In fact, she was in sight. Coincidentally, she was on the north coast at this time, so she ambushed Dragon City in advance to save Rebecca. Let go of her. After successfully intercepting, Violet snorted coldly and rushed forward without talking nonsense. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read. 192. The Truth of the Year. Although Violet's fruit ability is interesting, his own strength is really average. Even if Longcheng was holding Rebecca and was just dodging defensively, Violet said in particular that if he grabbed someone, he wouldn't even hurt a single hair of Longcheng. Quote. After a burst of rushing attacks, they were easily blocked by Longcheng. Violet already knew that her strength was far worse than that of Longcheng. She couldn't help frowning, thinking of a way to save Rebecca. Since she is not an opponent herself, she can only rely on others. As long as she delays for a moment, Doflamingo's people should be able to find this place soon. The entire Dressrosa is under the control of the Don Quixote family. But then, Rebecca will return to the arena and continue to be a prisoner swordsman. Compared to being kidnapped by this stranger in front of him, Violet couldn't judge for a while, which one would do less damage to Rebecca. Why, can't you make up your mind? At this moment, Longcheng suddenly opened his mouth, as if seeing through what Violet was thinking, he said with a smile. In that case, why don't you use your ability to read my heart? Quote. Hearing this, Violet frowned. This person actually knew her ability. But this is not bad. Violet made a gesture with both hands, and then turned her arms upside down in front of her eyes, peeping at the Dragon City. Violet's staring fruit, in addition to clairvoyance, and the attack method, Hot Iron Whale, there is also a spiritual peeping, which can instantly read the thoughts of others. Quote. This is. When he read Longcheng's mind, Violet's eyes widened instantly. It wasn't until a long time ago that he suddenly came back to his senses, and he couldn't help asking quickly. You really saw my father. And you were entrusted by him to save Rebecca. How can such a good ability not be used? Longcheng shook his head with a smile, and then pointed to the direction of the kingdom of Dongdada. You won't know if you see it for yourself. Violet was stunned for a moment, then returned to his senses, followed the direction pointed by Longcheng, and looked at it with clairvoyance. Then soon, he saw a figure. It was King Liku. Father King. Although Violet has clairvoyance, it is not a tracking eye, and under King Liku's deliberate hiding, she has no direction and is not easy to find. At this time, I finally saw King Liku again, and I couldn't help but feel excited. I'm going to unite with King Liku and the little people to fight against Doflamingo. At this time, Longcheng spoke again, smiling and inviting. Would you like to come and listen? Resistance. Doflamingo. Violet was lost for a while, then his expression suddenly became serious, and he nodded. Half an hour later, the kingdom of Greenbit Ding Dada. Violet, Rebecca. Father. Grandpa. King Riku, Violet, Rebecca. People can't help but cry. After a long time, it was separated. Grandpa, Auntie, it's really good to find you. Rebecca wiped away her tears and said firmly. Together we overthrow Doflamingo's rule. Quote. But looking at King Riku and Violet again, their faces were serious, and they were silent for a while. Child. After a long while, King Liku spoke. I have lost your mother. I can't lose you again. We can't be Doflamingo's opponents at all. Not only us, but also Mr. Soldier, and the little people. Rebecca continued to speak with excitement on her face. And the other prisoner gladiators in the arena, all those persecuted by Doflamingo. Rebecca. At this time, Violet also spoke, and said with a sigh. You don't know Doflamingo's strength at all. Even if these people are all added together, they can't be his opponent. Isn't the mother's revenge not avenged? Are you watching Doflamingo continue to persecute everyone? Unexpectedly, both grandfather and aunt refused to resist. Rebecca was full of grievances and roared loudly. Seeing Rebecca with tears on her face, King Riku and Violet fell silent again. They don't want to resist, they really don't see any chance of winning. Have you forgotten? At this time, Longcheng smiled and suddenly stood up. And me. You. Everyone was stunned, looked at Longcheng, then looked at Garrett and Monet, and couldn't help shaking their heads secretly. It's just that there are 3 more of them, what can they do? In addition, few people know Monet's true identity as a spy. Who joined the Don Quixote family, didn't know her existence, let alone know her. It's not just the 3 of us 3. Yes, there are 2 of us, hiding in the city. Garrett spoke with a serious look on his face. King Liku and Violet were speechless. What was the difference between 555 and 3? I have a way to expose Doflamingo's conspiracy and let the people of the whole country rise up to resist. Longcheng is no longer long-winded, and directly reveals the trump card. And when they heard this, King Liku and the others changed their expressions instantly. Doflamingo suddenly brought people here, threatening the lives of the people and demanding a lot of money from King Liku. King Liku had no choice but to levy it from the people. Immediately afterwards, Doflamingo used the fruit power to control King Riku, causing him to slaughter civilians. It is for this reason that King Riku, whom the people hated so much, turned to support Doflamingo's ascension to the throne. Really? Hearing this, Violet's eyes glowed, and he looked at Longcheng with excitement. If the original conspiracy can really be exposed, not only can Liku Wang be innocent, but also the people can be assembled to resist together. In this case, it may not be without a chance. No. But at this time, King Riku still shook his head and said with a frown. Once a war is waged, more people will die. As long as everyone lives well, what is my grievance alone? Father. Violet frowned, trying to persuade. Life is very good, King Liku, do you remember my previous question? At this time, Longcheng spoke again, pointed at Rebecca, and asked in a cold voice. Who is her father? Father. Rebecca was startled, she did not remember the existence of her father. She had thought that her father had died when she was very young. Brother-in-law. Violet was also startled, she didn't even know who her sister's husband was. But in my impression, my sister ran out of the palace secretly, maybe it was because of this that she never met her brother-in-law. He is. Both Rebecca and Violet can be ignorant, but it is impossible for King Riku to not know. He frowned, but he couldn't remember anything. Rebecca's father has become a doll. Looking at the appearance of the three of them, Longcheng spoke directly and told the facts slowly. 193. Battle Plan. How is this possible? After hearing what Longcheng said, everyone was stunned. To turn human beings into dolls and erase them from the memory of all their relatives and friends is simply too incredible. But in this world, because of the existence of devil fruits, even the most incredible things are possible. Also, why the dolls are alive, why they don't have some important relatives in their memory, that's the only explanation that makes sense. Although his face was full of disbelief, everyone actually believed in what Longcheng said. My father was turned into a doll. Rebecca muttered to herself, suddenly regained her senses, grabbed Longcheng's hand, and asked excitedly. You know so much, you must know where he is now, right, and which doll is him, right? I know what else to do. Can you think of him? Remember how he hugged you, kissed you, loved you when you were young, and remembered how your family lived happily. Rebecca couldn't help being stunned, and then she sat down on the ground, unable to hold back her tears. She couldn't remember, not at all. Longcheng turned to King Liku again and asked in a deep voice. So, do you still think the people of this country are doing well? I see. King Liku glanced at Rebecca, who was very sad, then looked at Longcheng, and everyone, and said firmly. For those, our forgotten loved ones, for true happiness, I will stand up, call on the rebels, and overthrow Doflamingo's dark rule. Father. Seeing the reinvigorated King Liku, Ovalet couldn't help but feel excited. Uprising, overthrow Doflamingo. The little people were also excited and shouted in unison. Seeing this scene, Longcheng smiled and planned the first step, complete. After everyone reached a consensus, the next step is how to act. Even if they have reasons for not allowing failure and firm beliefs, the objective facts are still in front of them. Their strength is too weak, and Doflamingo and the Don Quixote family under his command are too powerful. With our current strength, we naturally cannot confront the Don Quixote family head-on. At this time, Longcheng couldn't care less about modesty, and directly stood up and said. The first thing we have to do is to gather all the power we have and defeat the sugar. Sugar. The cadre of the Don Quixote family is also a person with the ability of the fruit of childishness. Longcheng nodded and then explained. Everyone who is touched by her hand will become a doll. This ability is indeed abnormal, but it also has huge flaws. As long as the person with the ability loses consciousness, the ability will be released. And they will become human. You mean? Yes, we don't need to deal with the entire Don Quixote family, we just need to defeat the sugar and save all those who have been turned into dolls. When these people are freed, when the people are aware of Doflamingo's conspiracy, they will naturally gather around us and fight with us. At that time, the copyright of the novel resource belongs to the original author, the text is only for personal study and trial reading, please delete it within 24 hours after downloading, please support subscribing to Genuine Novels and refuse piracy. Hearing this, everyone understood and couldn't help showing excited smiles on their faces. Yes, with their strength alone, they cannot fight against the Don Quixote family. But if it is the entire Dressrosa, all the people can definitely overthrow Doflamingo. Then let us take the overthrow of sugar as our strategic goal and discuss the specific actions that follow. Immediately afterwards, several people got together and had a discussion. In fact, it is nothing more than 2 points. One is to gather the troops as much as possible, and the other is to determine the location of the sugar. Gathering the troops, mainly to the King of Liku, is in charge of the extremely fast and concealed villains, contact and summon the old members of the Riku family. As for the location of the sugar, it would be more appropriate to leave it to Violet. In addition to her ability to stare at the fruit, her current status is that of the Don Quixote family leader. After everything is negotiated, everyone takes their own actions. By the way, either of you two go back and call Jinpei and the others. Watching Violet go back, Longcheng suddenly remembered and said to Garrett and Monet with a smile. From now on, our base will be located in the kingdom of Dongdada. All go. Garrett was having a good time with the little people, but Monet smiled and replied without speaking. Good. Longcheng nodded and said with a smile. Then it's hard work for you. It's my honor to serve the boss. Monet smiled and turned to leave. Damn. And Monet, who had just turned around, suddenly turned gloomy. Longcheng actually knew the secret behind the doll, and together with King Liku and others, they aimed the gun directly at the sugar. The most hateful thing is that Violet turned out to be a traitor. With Violet as his inner responder, he would definitely be able to find out the location of the sugar. Of Longcheng and others, it is not impossible to knock out the sugar in the case of a surprise attack. In this way, the doll turns back into a human, and the truth is revealed, it would be really bad. The entire Dressrosa people gathered together, and it was impossible to defeat the Don Quixote family. But once this matter is announced, its vile nature will inevitably lead to the intervention of the Navy. After all, Dressrosa is a member of the world government. By then, Doflamingo's throne will at least not be preserved. You must notify the young master immediately. Reason why Monet took the initiative to ask to go back was to report the news. Soon, Monet returned to the city, found a place to hide temporarily, and quietly took out a phone bug wearing flamingo sunglasses. After a while, Monet appeared again, and then went to the Avenue of Lovers to find Jinpei and Caesar. Guangyu Longcheng is indeed smart, but he would never have thought that I am actually a member of the Don Quixote family. Monet smiled lightly, and his heart was full of pride. At the same time, in the palace, Doflamingo, who put down the phone bug, had a particularly gloomy expression on his face. I didn't expect Longcheng to move so fast, and now it has reached Dressrosa. What was even more unexpected was that he actually captured Punk Hazard first and recovered Caesar Curran. But it is precisely because of this that Monet lurks beside him and obtains such important information. Guangyu Longcheng, what is your origin? At the same time, Doflamingo couldn't help but wonder, where did Longcheng know this information, yi. But then, he sneered again. As long as you kill Longcheng, you don't have to think so much. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read. 194. Raid. Open black lens bracket. Cooling time is over. Close black lens bracket. This morning, the system prompt sounded. Enhanced, finger guns. Longcheng glanced at the list of enhancements and issued an order. The goal of this infinite strengthening is to point to the gun. As the host confirmed, yes. Open black lens bracket. Enhancement completed. Close black lens bracket. As the system prompts sound one after another, the enhancement is completed instantly. Longcheng couldn't help but shake his spirits and opened his personal panel. Dragon City, strengthened organs. Heart, liver. Strengthened skills. Monkey stealing. Peach Hope, Bing D, Orchid, Gatling, Dilly, Ju Chao, multiply 10, Super Gatling, Super Cannon, Circular Gatling. Sea flows over shoulder, waves, moon steps, iron wall cross, 6 body, coding. The war is about to begin. As one of the 7 seas, the Don Quixote family is powerful, and Doflamingo's personal strength should not be underestimated. In order to improve the attack method, Longcheng once again strengthened the attack skills. Absolutely through. Lightning Flint. Looking at the specific information of the skill, when he saw the strengthening effect, Longcheng opened his eyes slightly, and he couldn't help showing surprise. Absolute penetration. The power that penetrates everything. Lightning and Flint. The speed of shooting as fast as lightning. Among the 6 naval styles, there are only 2 attack skills, Landfoot and Finger Spear. In contrast, the Lanjiao is a long-range and direct attack, while the finger gun is a close-range direct attack. Although the finger gun can also eject air bombs, there are similar long-range derivative moves. As a close-range attack skill, the most important thing is power and speed. These 2 features enhance this time. Just meet these 2 points. As expected of the system. For this result, Longcheng expressed his satisfaction, and couldn't help but praise again. And in this way, this time with more flamenco, Longcheng has another big support. Almost there. Skills have been strengthened. Longcheng suddenly froze, turned to look forward. I saw that in the open space, the 200 little people of the Dongdada kingdom had already dressed up. Just last night, Violet secretly heard the news. The bit of sugar is hidden in the factory, under the personal protection of Torapal, one of the top officials of the Don Quixote family. This information is also consistent with what I know as a traveler of Dragon City. Target factory. Everything is ready here, and since that's the case, the battle is about to begin. Yes. Following Longcheng's order, the little people left in groups of 4 and went to Dressrosa. In order to achieve a surprise effect, avoid attracting Doflamingo's attention in advance. Battle plan is to break it into pieces, sneak in first, and ambush around the factory. Wait until 10:10 p.m., and then launch a raid together. In addition to the little human race, during this time, King Liku summoned the old group, a total of more than 400 people, and they have also scattered and ambushed in the city. At 10 o'clock tonight, we will launch a raid with the little people. What is worth mentioning is that the captain of the rebel army in the city is Rebecca's soldier Mr. Cyrus, who has turned into a doll. Due to the restrictions of the sugar contract, Cyrus cannot recognize Rebecca and the others. Although he has turned into a doll, he still possesses great strength as a legend who has 3,000 won games in a row in the arena. After being retrieved by Rebecca, he soon became the captain of the rebel army. Let's go to evening. All the 20 clans had sneaked into the city, and Longcheng then said something to Jinpei and the others. Dragon City, as well as Jinbei, Caesar, Garrett, and Monet have a total of 5 people. Compared with others, they are more likely to attract the attention of the Don Quixote family, so they all act separately. According to Longcheng's words, with their strength, it would not be a problem to act separately. Yes. Be careful, Your Highness. Why would I want to participate in this kind of thing? Good boss. 4 of 4 take orders, and then leave one by one. Wait until night falls, as the last Dragon City, then set off. First through the moon step, he flew over Dressrosa in a blink of an eye, and then cross the multi-dimensional space with a shave, sneaking into the city unknowingly. Looking at the time, there are still more than 2 hours before the action time. Longcheng is not in a hurry, and finds a place to hide temporarily. At this time, the little people who had already lurked in the city, and the little people who arrived first, were already close to the factory, and they rushed in just waiting for the general attack signal from Longcheng. Fu Yi. At this time, in the palace, there were constant reports from his subordinates, and a large number of suspicious people had been detected, lurking around the factory, and Doflamingo couldn't help but let out a gloomy laugh. Getting news from Monet, the plan of Dragon City, and Violet's betrayal, Doflamingo has been holding his ground, in order to put a long line to catch big fish. After this period of time, King Liku gathered a large number of resistance forces, and Doflamingo thought it was almost done, so he began to close the net. First, he lowered the sugar's protection so that Violet could detect its location. Unsurprisingly, after Violet sent this piece of information, Longcheng and the others immediately began to act, sneaking into the city in batches and gathering towards the factory. Before this, the sugar was indeed in the factory, but tonight, it has been transferred to the palace. The factory at this time, there are only most of the troops of the Don Quixote family in ambush. Doflamingo has set up such a big trap, that is, to catch Dragon City, King Riku and other people who resist him. It's been a long time. Just now, Monet sent a message again that Longcheng and the others would launch a general attack at 10:10. Looking at the watch, there are still more than 2 hours, and Doflamingo said to himself that he couldn't wait. In the hall of the palace, Doflamingo was drinking alone, and the time passed by the ticking of the clock. Boom, boom, boom. Finally, as the clock struck, 10 o'clock arrived. It's on. Doflamingo got up and went to the window, looking out. According to Monet's intelligence, Dragon City will be named after fireworks. When the red fireworks went up, it was when they attacked the factory. In Doflamingo's view, it was also the time when Dragon City and the rebels were destroyed. Why hasn't it appeared yet? But after waiting for 2 full minutes, I haven't seen the fireworks as a signal. Brother Doflamingo couldn't help frowning. Could it be that Longcheng's watch was slow? Don't wait, there are no fireworks going up tonight. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from behind. Doflamingo frowned for a moment, then turned around and saw a teenager standing there. It was Dragon City. 195. The real plan, singled out Doflamingo. Why hasn't the signal been sent yet? Outside the factory, it was already past 10:10, and the little people and other human rebels had not seen the fireworks as an attack signal, so they couldn't help but wonder for a while. But before the action, Longcheng had repeatedly warned that without a signal, no one should act without permission, otherwise they would kill all their companions. Therefore, at this time, my heart was full of doubts, but no one acted rashly. Still keep lurking, waiting for the signal with peace of mind. What's the matter? Monet was also lurking among the rebels, and she would never reveal her identity as a spy easily until Longcheng was killed. Couldn't help frowning secretly when I didn't see the signal lift off. Without the signal, these people would not rush into the factory and would not fall into the trap. Monet couldn't help worrying. Could it be that Longcheng found something? But no matter how, she won't do anything until the situation is unknown. Why haven't you come yet? Other side, among the workers, Pica, Diamante, and other officials of the Don Quixote family led their troops and ambushed everywhere. The time has come, but no enemy is rushing in, and everyone is at a loss. But in order to avoid exposure, they did not dare to take any action, let alone rush out of the factory, so they continued to hide and wait. As a result, everyone inside and outside the factory, whether it was the rebel army or the Don Quixote family, was lurking, falling into an inexplicable stalemate. At the same time, in the palace. Light Moon Dragon City. When Doflamingo saw the sudden appearance of Dragon City, he couldn't help frowning. Why are you here? Otherwise, where should I be? The factory. Longcheng smiled and looked at Doflamingo with a playful look on his face. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face sank instantly. In this case, his actions have been exposed. Damn, did Monet betray me? Doflamingo's face became more and more gloomy. All the information was passed on by Monet. Since it was exposed, he could only think of this possibility. Regarding Doflamingo's guess, Longcheng just smiled and didn't explain, so let him misunderstand. Since you know my deployment, you still need to transfer people to the factory, and then come to me by yourself. And think about anything else for the time being. Brother Doflamingo looked at the dragon city in front of him, and suddenly the corner of his mouth sneered. Do you want to kill me with your strength alone? As expected of the middleman in the dark world, the brain is smart. Longcheng nodded and admitted directly. As a traveler, Longcheng is well aware of the power of the Don Quixote family. Even if all the people of Dressrosa unite, they cannot be their opponent. Therefore, Longcheng's plan at the beginning was not a group fight, but a heads-up. And the reason why he united with the villains, saying that King Liku had made so many preparations, was only to create conditions for the heads-up. Through the false goal of sugar, and through the mouth of Monet, Doflamingo made himself smart and transferred all the troops to the factory. All of this is actually under the control of Longcheng, Fu Yi. Brother Doflamingo, who figured this out in an instant, couldn't help but let out a burst of laughter, and looked at Longcheng with gloomy eyes. You have played so many tricks just to fight against me alone. Are you so confident that you can defeat me? Try it and you'll know. Longcheng smiled, then his face suddenly turned cold. He raised his leg, and kicked it with a chi blade. Although the goal has been achieved, there has been no movement from the factory, and it is difficult to guarantee that the people of the Don Quixote family will not notice and return to the palace. Therefore, there is not much time in Longcheng. In this case, there is only a quick solution. Lanjiao. Doflamingo sneered at the corner of his mouth, then raised his hand and released a cobweb-like white thread to resist. Doflamingo is a thread fruit capable, and can make all kinds of threads. As one of the 7 Wuhei under the king, and a great pirate who has fought against the navy many times, he is very familiar with the 6 forms of the navy. The face of Longcheng Lanjiao, instead of dodging, he blocked with cobweb lines, just. I wanted to test Longcheng's attack strength. But the next moment, what Doflamingo never expected, was followed by a soft sound. That was attached to his domineering aura of armament and was several times harder than steel was cut in an instant. Immediately afterwards, the chi blade did not stop at all, and still shot towards him. Quote. Brother Doflamingo frowned instantly. He had fought against many 6-style masters, but he had never seen such sharp feet. At the same time, he turned his body to the side and directly avoided this chi blade. Sigh. Then there was another soft sound, and the air blade slashed through the wall of the palace. It's like cutting a cake and passing it through easily, leaving a narrow and smooth gap. Doflamingo glanced at the corner of his eyes, and couldn't help but secretly startled again. Whoosh! At this moment, with a light sound, Longcheng suddenly disappeared from its place. Wait a minute, reappears a moment later, has reached Doflamingo's side, and then just punched him. 100,000 tile fists. So fast. 4. Dragon City's speed. Doflamingo was once again taken aback. At this time, it was too late to dodge, and there was no other way but to release a cobweb thread again to resist. Old Dragon City is in the center of the spider web. Although it was blocked by the spider web, it continued to move forward with terrifying strength. Bang! The next moment, there was only a muffled sound, hitting Doflamingo's chest. But under the huge impact, Doflamingo was directly knocked out. Boom! It slammed into the wall of the palace, and there was another loud noise, knocking a big hole out of the wall. Serious face, Longcheng walked straight towards the hole in the wall. Bounce! And at this moment, with a loud shout, a thread like a sniper rifle bullet shot out of the hole and went straight to Longcheng. Finger gun. Longcheng's expression remained unchanged, and he greeted him with one finger. Pung. Then, a muffled sound, under the absolute penetration of the finger gun, that thin line burst instantly. I really doubt that you are from the Navy. At this time, Doflamingo came out of the hole and looked at Longcheng with a solemn expression. With the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth, his face became more and more hideous. From Longcheng just now was enough to break 100,000 tiles, even Doflamingo couldn't bear it head-on. Fortunately, he resisted with the cobweb thread first, buffering some of his strength, so he could barely bear it. But even so, the viscera was injured by the impact, and at this time, he was secretly using the fruit power to repair it with thread. Whoosh! Longcheng didn't say a word, he directly expressed it with action, his figure swayed, and he rushed up again. Phailu reminds you. 3 things to read. 196. Wild Waves White Line. Shoot your guns. With a light drink from Longcheng, between the electric light and flint, hundreds of finger guns were displayed. Although Doflamingo blocked with cobwebs, even the denser cobwebs still had gaps. And even if he is armed with domineering, the strength of his line can't resist Longcheng's finger gun. Puff puff puff. Just hearing a muffled sound, Brother Doflamingo was hit more than 100 times in an instant, and countless blood flowers burst out on his back. PFF'd. Doflamingo stepped back one after another. Although he immediately sutured the wound with thread, his upper body had been poked like briquettes. At the same time, Doflamingo looked at Longcheng again. The arrogance in his eyes was completely gone, replaced by a lot of fear. As one of the 7 Marshalseas under the king, Doflamingo has a strong physique, superb physical skills, and is proficient in 3-color domineering. And his line and fruit ability is far more developed than ordinary people. But at this time, facing Longcheng, he had no power to fight. Whether it was Miwa Zhengchen, Lanzhao, or pointing gun, Doflamingo couldn't resist at all, so he could only dodge passively. But unfortunately, Longcheng's shaving is extremely powerful, it can be said to be a ghost. It is easy to approach Doflamingo's side, making it inevitable. Since he can't defend or avoid, he can only use offense instead of defense, but Longcheng seems to be very clear about his moves. With superb shaving, it is often possible to dodge in advance. Only time, Doflamingo tried to exchange injuries for injuries, and in the case of a hard finger, he cut Longcheng with a 5-color thread. But looking at it again, just as Longcheng's wound was about to bleed, it instantly solidified and scabbed, as if scratched by a kitten. Damn! Just a few times, Doflamingo was seriously injured. If it wasn't for the fruit's ability to mend the wound, he would have died long ago. Looking at Longcheng at this time, Brother Doflamingo frowned, thinking that he must never fight against Longcheng at close range. No wonder you dare to come to me alone, you really have some means. But if you think that I am only at this level, then you are very wrong. Eyes fixed on Longcheng, Doflamingo's face was instantly fierce. Wow, wow, the next moment, I saw the surrounding walls, with a twist, instantly turned into white lines. As the fruit awakened, Longcheng glanced at it, and it seemed that it was not 2 years later, as early as this time, Doflamingo's fruit ability had already awakened. The so-called fruit awakening is a higher-level application of the power of the devil fruit. Different types of fruit behave differently. As far as Longcheng knows, the awakening of the animal-type devil fruit, in addition to the body is stronger, it will have infinite resilience. No matter how badly injured, if you lie down for a while, you'll be fine. It's almost like an immortal body. And the superhuman devil fruit affects the surrounding environment. For example, at this time, Doflamingo is a string fruit, and under the influence of his ability, everything around him becomes a string. Wild waves and white lines. Just when Longcheng was thinking about it, he only heard DeFranco shout. Immediately afterwards, I saw that around him, a row after row of waves swept towards him like a huge wave. Once the white thread is wrapped around the person, it will be twisted instantly. With the powerful force, the person inside will be twisted like a twist. Knowing how powerful this move is, Longcheng didn't make a hard connection, just swayed his body, and used shaving to dodge again. See where you can escape. Brother Doflamingo was not surprised that Longcheng could dodge, but a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Arrogance of seeing and hearing, he roughly locked the position of the Dragon City, and then mobilized the white lines around it, rising like a wall, and like a huge wave, sweeping the Dragon City from all directions. Is there no dead angle attack? The Dragon City that just appeared, glanced at the white lines everywhere, and then looked at Brother Doflamingo, who had a smug look on the outside, and couldn't help snorting. Shave. The next moment, cast your skills and disappear from the spot again. You can't run away. Seeing this scene, Doflamingo's face remained unchanged, and he continued to manipulate the white line to rush towards the middle. He knew that the so-called shave was just moving at a high speed, not really disappearing. In this way, no matter how Longcheng moves, it is still there, surrounded by his white line. Whoosh! Just when Brother Doflamingo was proud, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Dragon City. How can this be? Brother Doflamingo's face changed greatly in an instant. How could Longcheng escape from his white line's siege? 100,000 Tile Zhengchen. At this time, Longcheng's face was serious, and he had already punched him. Bang! Immediately afterwards, there was only a muffled sound, and Doflamingo didn't even have time to use the line to resist, and punched his chest firmly. What happened? Just when Longcheng and Doflamingo were fighting fiercely, because the movement was too loud, they couldn't help alarming everyone in the Don Quixote family in the factory. Sent someone to come out to check, and I saw the location of the palace, with white lines like waves everywhere. Not good. Dover is in danger. This is Doflamingo's fruit awakening, and he actually used this trick, which shows that he has fallen into a hard fight. No matter what happened, everyone in the Don Quixote family panicked and rushed out of the factory directly to the direction of the palace. This is. The little people and the rebels lurking outside the factory suddenly saw a large number of pirates pouring out of the factory, and their expressions changed instantly. This seemingly peaceful factory turned out to be a huge trap that devoured people. After realizing this, I couldn't help but be afraid for a while. If they rushed in just now, they would have been wiped out. Then it was fortunate that Longcheng did not release the signal to attack. Dragon City. Thinking of this, everyone suddenly reacted. Yes, where did Longcheng go? Why didn't he release the signal? Could he have already noticed that there was an ambush in the factory? That's. At the same time, looking in the direction of the palace, the building and the ground suddenly turned into white lines, and everyone was full of doubts, as if someone was fighting. Quickly go to support Dover. Compared to the doubtful rebels, the Don Quixote family couldn't care less, and rushed to the foot of the King's Heights. The palace is on it, and Doflamingo is on it. As long as they rush up, no matter what enemy they have, they can use their advantage in numbers to drown them in an instant. Whoops! At this moment, a jelly-like purple liquid suddenly poured out from the high ground, like a flood, rushing towards the Don Quixote family. People swarmed in. 197. The final blow. Why would I do such a thing? On the King's Heights, Caesar's face was full of fear. Pretended to join Dragon City just for the bloodline factor map, but he didn't want to really fight against Doflamingo. Hurry up. Looking at Caesar who was dawdling, Jinbei scolded and raised his fist with a serious face. According to Longcheng's account, Jinbei said that Caesar was a little dishonest, so he beat him directly. I see. Because of a small mistake, I have tasted Jinbei's fist. The Murloc's arm strength is 10 times that of humans, not to mention Jinping, who was once one of the 7 Seas. Brother Doflaming, I was persecuted. If you want to take revenge, look for Guangyu Longcheng and that dead fishman. Caesar sighed helplessly, while muttering. He took out a castanet from his body, raised his hand and threw it down. Pong! With a muffled sound, a large amount of poisonous gas suddenly erupted from the castanets, and then quickly gathered into a huge pool of gelatinous liquid. Roar! The gas venom is shaped like a giant slug, raising its head and letting out a roar. This is one of Caesar's researches, the Kingdom of Death. A large amount of highly toxic gas is compressed and then fed with the salamander fruit of the animal system to obtain life. Go, sweet little one. Although he was reluctant, when he saw the emergence of the Kingdom of Death, it was like viewing a satisfactory piece of art, and Caesar's face was full of relief. Immediately afterwards, under the command of Cather, the scope of the Kingdom of Death expanded rapidly, like a torrent in the blink of an eye, surging down from the king's heights and heading straight for the Don Quixote family below. It's a pity. In fact, the real use of the Kingdom of Death is to detonate it, so that a large amount of poisonous gas is instantly released, enough to cover the entire country, so it is called the Kingdom of Death. But Longcheng's order only asked them to stop the Don Quixote family who rushed to help, and not to hurt ordinary civilians. Of course, it can't detonate the Kingdom of Death, which makes Caesar really unhappy. It's venom. Run! Who came in a hurry from the factory, was just about to ascend to the king's heights when they suddenly saw a large amount of poison rushing in. They couldn't help but change their faces instantly, and then they shouted and ran away. Although the Don Quixote family has a large number of people, except for a few cadres, most of them cannot risk their lives for Doflamingo. As for those loyal cadres, when the stairs are completely covered with venom, it is difficult for them to go up for a while. Dover. Of course, some of them can still come up. For example, Pika of the Stone and Stone Fruit ability, he can assimilate with the rock and sneak directly into the highland of the king from the ground. No traffic here. But unfortunately, in addition to the poison, there is also Shippen, who saw Pika appear, and walked up with a light drink. You bastards! Who was worried about Doflamingo's safety, with a face full of anger, let out a sharp roar, and went directly to meet Shippen. As for other cadres, such as Senor, who is able to travel around the fruit, and Buffalo, who is able to turn around the fruit, although they can also use their abilities to reach the heights of the king. But with their strength, they couldn't intervene in the battle between Dragon City and Doflamingo at all. Result, although the Don Quixote family came from the factory, they were unable to effectively reinforce Doflamingo for a while. Wild waves and white lines. At this time, Doflamingo was forced to use the fruit ability to awaken. Driven by him, the white line is like a wave, constantly attacking Longcheng frantically. But he never imagined, and could not figure it out, that Longcheng could actually cross his white line and reach him directly. 100,000 tile fists. Then without hesitation, it was a ferocious punch. But the next moment, Longcheng couldn't help frowning. Did hit, but there was a kind of strange feeling, like a punch on the cotton wool, the feeling of nowhere to focus. In the next moment, Doflamingo, who was hit by Longcheng, suddenly spread out and turned into a mass of white lines. Shadow Ride Line. Seeing this scene, Longcheng understood. So-called Shadow Riding Line is one of Doflamingo's Devil Fruit moves, that is, a clone made of lines. After being seriously injured by Longcheng, Doflamingo became extremely careful, so even if Longcheng was trapped, he still put a clone here. Where is it? Annoyance, Longcheng looked around, looking for Doflamingo's body. But then, he frowned again. Our white lines like waves everywhere, not only can be used for attack, but also the best cover. Under the cover of these white lines, Longcheng couldn't find Doflamingo himself at all. Looking down again, the Don Quixote family had arrived, and although they were temporarily blocked, they could not hold on for too long. In other words, Longcheng's time is running out. In that case, Longcheng's face sank, and he directly entered the human beast form. Land feet are messed up. With a light drink, his legs and 9 tails waving behind him. I saw hundreds of chi blades appearing around Longcheng in an instant. Swish swish, and at the next moment, these chi blades suddenly blasted out together, making a sharp air-breaking sound. And in the process of flying out, it quickly grew larger and turned into a giant air blade with a length of 100 meters. Absolute slash. These. Where the air blade swept, all the white lines were cut off. Hey! With a buzzing sound, the white lines that were layered on top of each other like sea waves were instantly chopped to pieces. Found it. At the same time, between the slits, a pink figure was seen. It was Doflamingo. Whoosh! Longchung's expression was serious, and then his figure swayed, and he directly used his shave to move over. Damn! With the help of the clone to attract Longchung's attention, Doflamingo, who finally hid, was trying his best to mend the injury. But I didn't expect that Longchung would find him so quickly in such a chaotic way. Seeing the figure of Longchung disappearing again, Doflamingo knew in his heart that he would appear by his side in the next moment. Brother Doflamingo's face suddenly sank. Since there is no way to avoid it, he can only do it recklessly. Then, focus on the domineering to the highest level, and try to perceive the trajectory of Longchung's actions as much as possible. Found it. Although Longchung's speed was fast, he finally discovered at a critical moment that Doflamingo's face was hideous. Just a violent shout. Send holy bullets to kill God. Swish, swish, swish. The next moment, I saw waves of white waves rising from the ground, instantly condensing and becoming 16 sharp spears. In the case of fully attached to the armed domineering, it has the power to destroy everything. This is also Doflamingo's strongest move. At this time, he was desperate and tried his best to hit Longchung. Philo reminds you. 3 things to read. 198. The battle was successful. What happened? The palace, one of the top officials of the Don Quixote family, Torapal, codenamed Plum Blossom, is responsible for protecting the sugar. After 10:10, there was a sudden burst of roaring noises in the hall, and I was surprised and worried for a while. But looking aside, he didn't care at all, still eating the sugar from the grapes on his fingers. Torapal frowned, sat down again, and didn't leave. According to the information, the rebels have gathered in the factory. If nothing else happens, everyone who resists Doflamingo will be annihilated tonight. This is the palace, so what can go wrong? And even if there were any unexpected circumstances, with Doflamingo's strength, there would be no problem. In contrast, what Torapal has to do is to abide by his duties and protect the sugar. After all, sugar is the key to everything. Boom, boom. Next, the roar and loud noise continued to come, but Torapal was completely unmoved and stayed by the sugar side. After a while, the surrounding buildings suddenly turned into white lines. Not good. Torapal was stunned for a moment, and then his face changed greatly in an instant. It was Doflamingo's Fruit Awakening ability. And this also shows that the opponent is extremely powerful, forcing Doflamingo to use Fruit Awakening. In order to eliminate rebels, the Don Quixote family at this time, most of the troops are ambushed in the factory, so there are basically no guards around Doflamingo. Dover. Thinking of this, Torapal shouted nervously, and then ran out of the room to go to support. Although sugar is important, Doflamingo is their king. Once the king encounters an accident, everything will be meaningless. To be said that Torapal's thinking is indeed extremely clear in positioning the think tank. But unfortunately, Care is messed up, he forgot his own strength. Torapal is a sticky fruit person who can make all kinds of slime, and those slime can also be ignited. But his attack range and attack strength are extremely limited. Doflamingo has awakened using the fruit ability, and the battle with Dragon City immediately turned into the air. After Torapal arrived, he could only stand below and watch, unable to reach, let alone help. Hey! And just when Torapal was in a hurry, a figure suddenly appeared outside the sugar-hiding building. It was Garrett. Under Dragon City's arrangement, Garrett sneaked into the King's Heights early. Then, according to what Longchung said, he followed the person who delivered the grapes, and he found the place where the sugar was hiding. And Garrett's mission is to defeat the sugar. But because of Torapal's personal escort, Garrett has never dared to act. It was only at this moment that Torapal couldn't help but leave, and she showed up. Sure enough, it's the same as what Longcheng said. Looking in secretly from the window, I saw a little girl eating grapes. Garrett couldn't help laughing. This must be granulated sugar. After confirming, Garrett took out a small jar from his body and threw it directly into it. Boom. Torapal had already left, and Sugar didn't care, and was still eating grapes. But at this moment, a soft sound was suddenly heard, and I saw a beautiful little boy spinning on the ground. Sugar couldn't help but wonder, and walked over subconsciously. Chi. But the next moment, a large amount of gas suddenly spewed out of the small jar, filling the entire room almost instantly. It smells bad. Sugar wrinkled her nose, followed by a burst of dizziness. PFF'd. Then, with a muffled sound, one fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Success. Who was wearing a face towel to cover his mouth and nose, couldn't help but feel excited. Then he turned around and left immediately. According to what Longcheng said, he would run away immediately after he succeeded. And just after the sugar fell, the ability of the childlike fruit failed. The next moment, with the rays of light appearing all over the city, one by one, the dolls turned back to human beings. This is factory side. The rebels who left the Don Quixote family were still lurking, waiting for a signal. Suddenly seeing their leader's one-legged doll turned into a tall human, they were all startled. Could it be? And then, everyone suddenly realized. The doll changed back to a human. Could it be that the sugar has been defeated and the battle was successful? I'm back. It's great. Cyrus himself was also in an accident, and then his face sank again, and he turned back into a human body. With the strength that originally belonged to him, he was able to fight Doflamingo to the death. Dad. And just as Cyrus was thinking, a voice suddenly sounded. Looking up, I saw Rebecca, who was also among the rebels, looking at him with tears in her eyes. Reeb. The legendary hero of the arena was so nervous at this time that he couldn't even speak clearly. Dad. At this time, Rebecca shouted again, jumped up directly, and hugged Cyrus. At the moment when the ability of childlike fruit was released, she remembered everything about their complete family of 3. Rebecca. Cyrus was excited for a while, and the emotions that he had suppressed for 8 years burst out at this moment. He cried out, hugged Rebecca and cried. Cyrus. At the same time, King Riku, who was waiting for the news, suddenly remembered everything in the kingdom of Greenbit. The old man, Tears instantly wet his eyes. Great, Cyrus is back. And this also means that the battle has been successful. Woohoo, ahaha. At the same time, the people who were first shocked by the loud noise suddenly remembered everything at this moment. Of crying. For a time, the entire Dressrosa was overwhelmed by cries. Let's go to the King's Heights. After a while of excitement, Cyrus raised the long sword in his hand and shouted loudly. The King's Highland is fighting. If nothing else, it is Dragon City and Doflamingo. The Don Quixote family has already rushed, and they must hurry to support. Oh! Everyone shouted in unison, and led by Cyrus, went straight to the height of the king. Send holy bullets to kill God. And when they arrived, they heard Doflamingo's frantic roar. Immediately afterwards, I saw countless white lines rising up, gathered into 16 spears, and shot towards the Dragon City together. 100,000 tile Zhengchen times 10. In the face of Doflamingo's strongest attack, Longcheng did not hesitate at all, and the 9 tails superimposed their power into one punch, with a terrifying force that was enough to break 1 million tiles, and greeted it. Please read the underlined version of the novel. Download Fly. 199. Advanced Timeline. The fist wrapped in the domineering look of the armed color and the spear wrapped in the domineering look of the armed color collided heavily, making a loud noise that shattered the eardrums. In addition, there was another force that collided faintly, and the wind and clouds swept the sky with discoloration. PFF'd. Driven by the cadres, the pirates of the Don Quixote family want to sneak up to the king's heights from behind. The closer part was affected by the aura emanating from the battlefield, and suddenly his eyes turned white, and he lost consciousness. And fell down. Seeing this scene, the cadres of the Don Quixote family, as well as Shi Ping, instantly opened their eyes and their faces were full of shock. This is a tyrannical domineering. In order to defeat the other party, Longcheng and Doflamingo both resorted to with all his strength, in addition to armed arrogance, he couldn't help but stimulate the overlord in the body at the same time. I knew it. Immediately afterwards, Jinping was full of relief again. He really did not read it wrong. Longcheng has the potential to become a king, and he has awakened the domineering look of a king. Ordinary people don't know the existence of domineering, and what they care more about at this time is the victory or defeat on the bright side. For a time, both the Don Quixote family and the rebels couldn't help but stand, their eyes fixed on the sky. Pong! The next moment, under the gaze of everyone, with a muffled sound, under Longcheng's fist, the spear composed of white lines supported for a moment, suddenly collapsed, and turned into countless smashed shards. Go to hell! At the same time, Longcheng shouted loudly, his fists continued, and he hit Doflamingo hard. Hit him! Seeing this scene, the rebel army widened his eyes, his face full of excitement, and he couldn't help shouting in unison. Bang! Just as everyone shouted, with a muffled sound, Longcheng's fist hit Doflamingo's face hard. Whoosh! The next moment, Doflamingo was hit like a cannonball. Fly to the ground. Then there was another loud bang, and Doflamingo hit the ground, kicking up a lot of dust. Doflamingo was blown away. The troops of both sides, who were still nervous just now, were instantly in a kind of daze because of the shock. After a moment of humming, with a humming sound, the white line-like waves on the king's heights turned back into the building again. Did it work? Success. Down with Doflamingo. We are victorious. Seeing this change, the rebels suddenly came back to their senses and let out a burst of excited shouts. Since Doflamingo's ability to solve, it means he has been knocked down. Dover. Compared to the excited rebels, the Don Quixotes, especially the many cadres, all turned ashes. They really couldn't believe that Doflamingo was actually defeated. The next moment, Dragon City fell from the sky and fell directly in front of Doflamingo. The punch just now, with all his strength, can be called his strongest attack. But again, Doflamingo's 16-shot holy bullets can't be underestimated. So the last remaining strength was not enough to kill Doflamingo. Of course, even so, Doflamingo, who was hit so hard, was no longer able to fight, and Longcheng only needed to make up for it. What, do you want to kill me? Doflamingo lying on the ground walking towards his own Dragon City, his face was gloomy. Longcheng didn't speak, just raised his hand. In Doflamingo's current state, Longcheng can kill him with just one finger. Stop! And just when Longcheng was about to start, there was a loud shout from behind. Longcheng paused for a while and glanced back, but it was Toripal. Huh! Longcheng's mouth sneered, a mere Toripal, do you want to stop him too? Look who this is. Toripal himself knew that he was not the opponent of Dragon City at all. Immediately after a loud shout, the sticky stuff on his body wriggled, revealing a person's head. Quote. When he saw this person's face, Longcheng was slightly startled, then widened his eyes, full of surprises. Hey. Seeing Longcheng's reaction, Toripal couldn't help laughing proudly. How about it? It looks familiar. Can't talk about it. Longcheng pouted, but he had never seen this person, or he didn't remember anything at that time. But as a traveler, he does know this person, it is Yu Kanjuro. Or more accurately, Kuroden Kanjuro. As Odin's retainer, he is also one of the 9 heroes who saved Wano country. But the real identity is actually the traitor of the black charcoal snake. At this time, Kanjuro, as an actor who has been acting all his life, should still be playing the role of his loyal minister and righteous man. But these are not a problem. The biggest problem is that it is the 152nd year of the Kaiyuan calendar. According to the original plot, Mrs. Shi asked Kinemon, Raizo, Kanjuro, and Kikunosuke to protect Momonosuke, and then use the Fruit of Time to protect Momonosuke. The ability to send their group to the 152nd year of the Kaiyuan calendar, which is the time when Odin prophesied the founding of the country of Wano. That being the case, how did Kanjuro appear now? Could it be because of the reason that the Dragon City came through, and what impact had it produced? The plot of this place changed. Let's make a deal. Just as Longcheng was thinking about it, Toripal opened his mouth and said with a sneer, "You let Dover, and I'll give this man back to you." "Is that so? Your Highness?" "No." Longcheng pondered a little, and Kanjuro suddenly shouted at him, "How can I delay His Highness's big plans because of the mere inferiority of my subordinates?" Longcheng looked still. Kanjuro, who played the role of a loyal minister and a righteous man, suddenly smiled. Looking at Kanjuro's age, it was obvious that he had come through time. But even so, it shouldn't take long. That being the case, how could he be able to confirm the identity of Longcheng with such certainty and call him His Royal Highness? I'm afraid that Kanjuro, who came across as a spy, has already made contact with the black charcoal snake. How can that be done? Thinking of this, Longcheng suddenly changed his mind. Don't kill Doflamingo for the time being. Look at Toripal, and say with a serious expression, "Kanjuro is my important retainer. I won't allow you to hurt him." Hey hey hey. Hearing this, Toripal burst into smug laughter again, and his heart really worked. "Your Highness, no, ah." And Kanjuro was still shouting, and his face was moved to tears. But at this moment, Longcheng suddenly changed the conversation, smiled strangely, ignored the two of them, and turned to Doflamingo again. "Let's make a deal. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read. 200. The deal with Doflamingo." "Deal?" Brother Doflaming looked at Longcheng and couldn't help but startled. His life is now in Longcheng's hands. What can be traded? Very simple. Longcheng smiled, and said directly without being rude, "I'll let you go. You and I alliance, kill Kaido together." Quote. Hearing this, Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes widened. As one of the great pirates of the New World and one of the 7 seas under the king, Doflamingo has few people to fear. And Kaido of the Beasts is one of them. In fact, in the early years, the Don Quixote family and the Beast Pirates had a conflict, and as a result, the Don Quixote family ended in a fiasco. It was also at that time that Doflamingo really saw Kaido's horror. If it wasn't for Kaido's take on Doflamingo's role as an intermediary in the Dark World, the Don Quixote family would no longer exist. As a price, until now, Doflamingo still has to provide Kaido with various weapons, including artificial demons, at a low price. You must be joking. Doflamingo came back to his senses and looked at Longcheng with a gloomy face. Longcheng actually invited him to deal with Kaido together. What is the difference between sending him to death? This is my thoughtful thought. Huh. Brother Doflaming snorted coldly. Clearly just now, Longcheng still wanted to kill him, which was obviously a temporary intention. Okay, stop being emotional. Longcheng smiled, then his face suddenly turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Starting today, you and your family will get out of Dressrosa. And what you do in Dressrosa will make you lose the title of Shichibukai. Guangyu Dragon City." Brother Doflamingo looked gloomy and looked at Longcheng resentfully. "It's all thanks to you. This is not important. What is important is, how do you, who have lost your foundation and privileges, have a foothold in this sea?" Quote. Hearing this, Doflamingo frowned again. In fact, even if he left Dressrosa and was abolished by the Shichibukai, with the strength of Doflamingo and the Don Quixote family, he was still a force that should not be underestimated in this sea. But the most important thing is the complex network of relationships behind Doflamingo. As an intermediary in the dark world, he maintains business relationships with many major forces. The Beast Pirates are just one of them. One pirate group. Once Doflamingo lost Dressrosa, many of the base's business had to stop. Losing an important source of supply, those will inevitably take anger on him. The simplest example, without the factory, can no longer provide artificial devil fruit, Kaido will not spare him. In addition to these dark forces, Doflamingo used King Dressrosa and Shichibukai identity, and has many ulterior ties with the world government. The most important thing is that, as a former Tianlong person, he has some secrets that the world government is extremely afraid of. Once he loses the identity of Kibukai, from white to black, and no longer trusts his world government, he will immediately find a way to get rid of him. Just imagine, even if the Don Quixote family is not weak, facing the black and white, how long can you support 10 miles strong? How about it, have you figured it out? Seeing that Brother Doflamingo's face became more and more ugly, Long Cheng smiled and asked again. Quote. Brother Doflaming looked at Long Cheng again, his face became more and more sinister. After all, as he said, the reason why he fell into this situation is all thanks to Dragon City. Okay. But the matter has come to this point, it is useless to think too much, what he urgently needs to face is how to solve the current predicament, and then said with a sigh. How can you let me go? It's very simple, first of all I won't kill you. Longcheng went straight to the point and continued. Secondly, all your crimes in Dressrosa will not be made public for the time being. Of course, you have to make a statement, return the throne to King Riku, and leave here with your men. Quote. Hearing the conditions of Dragon City, Doflamingo couldn't help but ponder. As long as the crime is not announced, he can temporarily keep the title of Chiwahai. That is, he can temporarily avoid the pressure of the world government. Although she lost Dressrosa, many transactions could not be carried out, and she would still face the censure of the pirates. But compared to the enemy on the back, this is already much better, and it should be barely able to cope. It's just that Doflamingo is basically satisfied with the conditions of Dragon City. But since it is a transaction, it can be negotiated, and I can't help but want to ask for more benefits. You can't be too greedy. Seeing through his thoughts, Long Cheng interrupted directly and said with a gloomy expression. If you cooperate with me, at least you won't die now. Quote. Deal. Doflamingo froze for a moment, then responded with a sneer. Yes, his life is still in the hands of Longcheng, and he has no right to negotiate the conditions. Now that the conditions have been negotiated, Longcheng does not need to kill Brother Doflaming anymore, and then turns around and leaves. Dover. Torapal also released Kanjuro, ran to Doflamingo with a shout, and helped him up. Who had regained his freedom, regained his senses after a while, and then quickly followed Longcheng. Light Moon Dragon City. Looking at the back of Longcheng's departure, Doflamingo's face was full of sullenness. He promised to cooperate with Longcheng at this time, and it was only an expedient measure. He recovers from his injuries, he will definitely seek revenge on Longcheng again. However, his injury this time is too serious, and within 2 or 3 months, I am afraid that he will not be able to fully recover. Although Longcheng didn't look back, he could feel Doflamingo's viper-like gaze. As for Doflamingo's thoughts, you can naturally guess. But Longcheng didn't take it to heart at all, glanced at Kanjuro who was following him, and sneered inwardly. It is impossible to really control Doflamingo just by word of mouth. In fact, with Doflamingo's character, even if his life is in the hands of Longcheng, he may not be at his mercy. But Longcheng is confident that Doflamingo will definitely join forces with him to deal with Kaido together. And the key to this is Kanjuro. The reason why Longcheng and Doflamingo did not avoid Kanjuro's transaction, in order to let him pass the news back to Wano country. Just imagine, once Kaido knew about this, he might let Doflamingo go. There is no choice but to join forces with Longcheng and kill Kaido together.